Well,
impressed that we were coming to meet you.
We are all part of the same crew.
Yeah, you all went to different schools together.
Yeah. But Victoria Williams, you will not find a sweeter person. She does not have any harm in her whatsoever.
Right.
One of my friends, Pete Case, from the Plimsolls and the Nerves, lived with her up in Laurel Canyon, and they had this bitchin'. It wanted to be a cabin, and they had a giant tree in the backyard, and they lived on the precipice of a cliff, and on this tree they had the rope that all of the kids would swing on because there was a dead tire tied to this rope, and you would swing on this, and you would be like
way out
100 feet over this cliff.
That's dangerous.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, but it was the tire was not going anywhere, and they would have not allowed anybody to do that. But it was
Did it go into a body of water, or was it just risking
No, you
it
would have. Well, the body of water would have been somebody's swimming pool down below.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we start?
Well, we started. We started with a tree.
Have you been taping this?
Well,
or are we off record?
Well, now we're on record.
Okay.
On record as of now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you were saying that you can't get into the exercise because you aren't going to see daylight till when?
2023.
Why is that?
I'm sitting on 5 movie scripts.
That's amazing. I'm
sitting on, not sitting. I'm trying to participate. My band Off.
Yeah.
Dimitri, our guitar player, and I created 25 songs
recently
over the course of the last 2 years. While our rhythm section, we have a revolving rhythm section. We have Stephen McDonald from Red Cross, who also plays in the Melvins, who also plays in the Del Crover Band, who also runs a little recording studio.
Yeah.
And he'd been working with his wife on a That Dog album. I really feel sorry for him.
Why? Because he's so busy?
Yeah, it's like 1 minute he's doing one thing, and then all of a sudden we're going on tour with the Melvins and Red Cross, and they were at one point thinking about adding the Del Crover Band.
So he'd have been in 4 bands.
He would have been doing like a 3-peat. He would have been doing what I call the triple whammy.
Yeah.
So we have Stephen McDonald as our bass player.
Yeah. And
we, in our revolving door, brought in a 3rd drummer. We brought in Gabe Serbian from The Locust. And we are in a position where we can reach out to just about anybody we want to reach out to, and they would come and play with us.
That's true.
And I'm really proud of that situation. I mean, I can't be ecstatic enough.
Yeah.
Dimitri and I, while these guys were out doing the Melvins and doing Red Cross and doing the Del Crover Band, Dimitri and I, we're the guys that create the music. So we have this two-year period to come up with 25 songs. And we got into this situation where we were dealing with conspiracy theories.
Oh my God, you're in the right podcast. I love conspiracy theories.
And
are you a flat earther? Moon landing? Didn't happen. Moon landing. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on the moon landing.
Moon landing.
That was filmed right out here, and you're going out to the desert later on this afternoon.
The moon, aka the moon.
Joshua Tree or Palm Desert or
exactly. I'll put a flag for you. Hey, I didn't even mean to say that. The flag.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, I also play in a band called the Flag. Called Flag.
Yeah.
Who are all of we are all of the guys that will not play with Greg Ginn because he's just become such an evil human being.
Yeah, people aren't a fan of him, I've noticed.
Well, he just he burned every bridge he could burn, and he just
why did he do that?
He didn't just burn them down; he blew them up.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about Mark Lanigan earlier.
Right.
The Screaming Trees, all of their early recordings,
SST.
some of their greatest recordings.
Yeah.
That Buzz Factory, that record's genius. No, I have the utmost respect for Mark Lanigan.
Yeah.
Like I cannot give that guy enough praise.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart too. We had a great time last night.
Yeah,
talking.
just a
what a voice. Huh?
And I've heard horror stories, but it's like we've all got our horror stories attached to us.
Definitely. And we all grow up, and then.
But getting back to the
moon
landing, which also could have been filmed right over here at Warner Brothers Studio or wherever they filmed.
Well, how could they have done a live broadcast from the moon back then? Does anybody think about that?
Well, here's the thing. Because our world is so messed up, and all of these people have all of these different channels and all of these different lines that they run through, and all of these ugly, horrible threads.
Yeah.
That. How could it not be easy for them to do that, to go to all of the major stations and say, you're going to show this and you're going to run the recording along with it, and we are going to fool the American public.
Yeah.
We are going to fool the world.
Yeah.
Because we're the greatest and we can do this. Because we have the technology to do this.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on and on and on and on.
It's crazy. And it's like nobody really, it's weird, the resistance, and if you get called an idiot if you like even question these things critically, like if you question the nature of reality, even though clearly we have been lied to by NASA, like, and stuff like that.
On several dozen occasions.
Yeah, and if you question the nature of reality, you're like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. Like, it's like there's so much, like, anger at anybody that even throws these things into question. I find that interesting too.
Are you a doofus? No.
Right. Yeah.
I actually did a podcast with one of my best friends. He plays drums in a band called Thelonious Monster. He's my neighbor. He's, like I said, one of my best friends. We did a podcast where that's all we did. We just, like, one day it's like, so Keith, let's do this podcast. What are we going to do? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
Like a couple of bros, a couple of goofy guys just digging, not really digging deep into it, but sometimes just scratching the surface. We're standing there outside of the coffee shop right down the street here on Sunset Boulevard, and he said, "So what are we gonna talk about?" And I said, "Well, why is there a white stripe up there in the sky?
Right.
Let's start there."
Right.
And in digging into that, it's like all of a sudden we have footage of one of the main guys from the CIA stepping up and going, "We're spraying aluminum nanoparticles because we are trying to control the climate."
Yeah.
And then my friend Ted Falcone, who's the guitar player in Flipper, said, "Keith, they're spraying that aluminum because they're Chinese satellites flying overhead that are trying to film and take photos of all of these different military installations."
Right.
Because we're here in Southern California, we have one of the largest grouping of military complex technology industry. That's part of what makes California the 5th largest economy in the world.
Right.
And so they want to look down on all of these things and, let's see if we can go through the roof of the building to see if there's any plant, because the technology is that hardcore where they could find out what it smells like in the office of the guy who's creating some kind of laser beam device that's going to be shot from a drone over the Middle East. You know? So, looking at the chemtrails, we discover that the Air Force steps up and says, "We're spraying lithium."
Right.
It's like, well, why would you spray lithium on the population below?
Or why is there fluoride in the water?
And you know what fluoride is? Fluoride was just industrial waste, and they didn't know how to get rid of it. So it's like, let's call up 50 dentists, and we'll create this scenario where everybody needs fluoride.
And it calcifies your pineal gland.
Well, what it also does is it creates tooth decay. And it also was what the Nazis used in the concentration camps during World War II to keep all of the Jews in place.
And you know where the...
and I'm a Jew.
NASA was started by an SS soldier, too. Did you know
Dude,
that?
all of that technology.
Yeah.
We swooped on those Nazi scientists so fast. It was like, we can't let the Russians get a hold of these guys.
Right.
You know, and so Hitler had a honeymoon, which was based on an ancient Indian India, Middle Eastern India. Mm-hmm. They had a bell-shaped device that allowed them to fly through the sky.
Right.
And Hitler had his scientists develop it, and then all of a sudden, you know, that's the reason why we have the Foo Fighters. We can blame Adolf Hitler and his scientists for having Dave Grohl in the Foo Fighters.
Why is that?
Because there was a group in the military when they were fighting these unidentified flying objects. They were called Foo Fighters. The guys that went up against these.
I didn't know that.
All this Nazi Japanese crap, because the Japanese had some of it too.
That's interesting.
But anyways, getting back to the white chemtrails. There will be all of the people that deny, well, it's a contrail. You know, when the jet flies by and it leaves this contrail. A contrail is basically just heat being released from the back of the jet engine into the atmosphere. It's so cold up there that when the heat hits the cold, it turns into like ice particles. Mm-hmm. And once it starts to drop and it hits a certain part of the atmosphere, it dissipates.
Right.
And it goes away. But then we have these white stripes.
That
you can still see some of the residue and some of it.
Yeah.
You know, but that's a cloud. When's the last time you saw a white stripe in the sky that's a cloud?
Right.
You know, you go into the book and you look at the white clouds, and you're not going to see white stripes.
So what do you think the purpose is? Are they trying to kill us, or are they trying to control us, or what? What do you think?
All of it.
All of it.
Well,
like what I started saying about, like, if you build your reality on a gaslight, you can never expand to your full potential. That's why if you like the nature of reality, if we've been lied to so thoroughly, you know, you got to get to the truth before you can fully expand. They want to keep us small and submerged.
Joseph.
Yeah.
We are slaves.
Mm-hmm.
We are prisoners.
That's true.
There are no walls.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need walls.
Except in our minds.
Yeah. I took it even further on the white stripe in the sky,
mm-hmm.
and they actually, a bunch of scientists got together up at Mount Shasta in the town Shasta, which is next to Mount Shasta,
mm-hmm.
and they all stepped up with their research, and it all pointed to just the possibility that all of this stuff has been created and they don't know how to reel it back in. It's gotten so far out of hand that it's like we just got to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not working anymore. Like, 'cause the internet and people are like, you know, restarting to wake up and research it, and there's questions that can't be answered about the moon landing and stuff like that. That it just becomes obvious. Like, unless you just really want to put your head in the sand and just pretend there's nothing fishy going on.
Well,
it's the most straightforward thinker, or the most straightest thinker in the world, has to at least admit there's a lot of fishy bullshit going on. At least go there.
Well, here's a bottom line with the American population.
Right.
We've been beaten down to a point where it's like mom and dad have to work like 4 jobs, 6 jobs, just to be able to pay the kids and pay the rent and put clothes on them and send them to school. So all of these people don't have time to deal with any of this bullshit.
The student debt keeps people enslaved, because they trick people to go to college, and then they're like have so much debt they can never get out. There's no more jobs. That keeps them enslaved. It keeps them in permanent debt. It's bananas.
That's the reason why a person like Betsy DeVos needs to be placed against a wall, mm-hmm. and offered a cigarette, mm-hmm. and a blindfold.
What kind of cigarette?
It could be
a hookah.
It could be a dipper. It could be dipped in some angel dust.
Yeah.
It's still not going to help her.
Right.
It's not going to make her bulletproof. Getting back to this conference that they had at Mount Shasta,
mm-hmm.
one of the local scientist guys just on a whim decided it had just rained. There's a puddle of water out on his sidewalk. He looked at the puddle and he goes, I'm going to just do a little bit of research. And he swooped on some of the water in this puddle, took it in, placed it under the Superpower extra microscope, getting down to the point where he sees the little aluminum arrowhead-shaped particles in this water. Now, part of this situation, and there's so many directions that it goes. Are they turning us into these militaristic robots with all of these metal particles?
Yeah.
Another thing is it creates, the aluminum creates Alzheimer's disease. And now all of a sudden, the pharmaceutical companies get involved because now we got a threat on making zillions of dollars off of all of these people that are stumbling around, not knowing where they're going. Because what happens with the aluminum particles is that your brain is moving like this constantly, like millions and millions of like little electrons are like zapping back and forth, and that's how your brain works. And all of a sudden, you have all of these aluminum particles lodged in your brain that are creating like walls, and they're blocking off your electrons to be moving the way that they're supposed to be moving. So now all of a sudden you're getting carved down into just being close to having Down syndrome.
Well, diet does that too with carbs and sugar and stuff. It creates tons of inflammation. People eat carbs and it creates inflammation in their body, and it creates inflammation in their brain too. So the brain doesn't operate as correctly that way too. So
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
With all of these little particles, these nanoparticles.
I don't know if I can answer because there's so many blocks going on, but go ahead.
The way it works, the way our world works, the way the rain falls and the rain gets picked back up to go turn into rain or what have you, whatever. What is that photo? It's not photosynthesis. That has something to do with plant world. But we have this circular thing going on. It's just part of what goes on. I don't know the scientific name for it because I was terrible at science. That's what kept me from going to the Pasadena School of Design. Anyways,
probably thank God.
The nanoparticles fall from the sky. They got to land somewhere. They got to land in a field where they're growing corn. Got to land in a place where they're raising cattle. It's got to be in the
food.
It's got to be in the food and the milk and all of that.
It's the self-contaminator that just goes around
it just keeps going. Getting back to the aluminum and the Alzheimer's. In this conference, they also discovered one of the guys just went out into a forest and he started looking at the trees. And it hadn't snowed, but it looked like there was, like when you purchase a Christmas tree and you want to get it flocked, you get the white flocking on it to make it look more realistic, and it's Christmas time and it's snowing. And he's noticing this flocking on these trees in an area where it's not snowed in 10 years.
What's flocking?
The flocking is the white flocking on your Christmas tree.
Oh,
your mom and dad used to buy the Christmas tree, so you put the bulbs on it, and
I didn't know it was
like,
called flocking.
Yeah, flocking. And it's actually pretty flammable. But anyways, this particular science guy is looking at this. It looks like fungus, like a white fungus and a white flocking on the trunks of these trees, and on the far bottom limbs of the trees. And he goes and does his research, and he finds that it's barium, and barium is the basic. If you're building a bomb, or you want something to blow up, or if you got a gun and you fire the gun and that bullet goes flying out of the chamber, that's because there's some barium attached to that.
Okay.
Fireworks and explosives, barium. We now have this scenario where when a fire breaks out, There was a time when that fire would be out in a day or two if it was any kind of a large fire. And now they rage for 3 months, 4 months at a time.
Because of the aluminum and the barium?
No, because of the barium.
Yeah.
These forests just go...
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think of like 5G and all that kind of stuff? Like that's like another thing conspiracy theorists are really paranoid about. Do you know about that, 5G?
Explain it to me.
5G is what the iPhone is using now. Like, so yeah, mine says 5G right there. Like it used to be 4G, but apparently, so it downloads like much faster everything. It's like way more powerful, but apparently more of the bad shit all around us constantly.
Can I bring up a point that when I'm the president of the United States,
yeah,
all of the cell phones,
we're going to eliminate.
There's going to be a giant ditch somewhere out in the desert next to where they buried all of the bodies.
Right.
See, because when I become president, all of the politicians, no matter who they are, you could be the greatest, nicest person in the world, but you're a politician. Fuck you, you're out of here.
Yeah, but if you're a president, you'll be a politician too.
But I'm not going to be hanging out with other politicians. I refuse to hang out with other... I refuse to...
Yeah.
Let's bring it from the working class and the lower classes,
right,
rather than just being a 1%er or, having to play all of the political sides and everything like that. So people won't vote for me anyways, because when I show up, I'm going to be dressed just the way that I'm dressed.
Yeah.
And what you see is what you get.
It'll be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, or it'll be a bloodbath. I would guarantee a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell would be the first one to go. And then I brought up the scenario with Betsy DeVos and her brother, who is making a killing off of all of the mercenary black water, I'm going to create my own army, and if the U.S. government doesn't hire me, I'll sell it to another dictator.
Right. So do you check out a lot of stuff on YouTube and stuff and research there, or where do you get where do you do research on all
Google,
this kind of stuff?
Unfortunately, Google. See, the
YouTube's
problem,
pretty informative. I know people like diss you if you like get your research on YouTube, but I don't know.
I'm just such a mental moron when it comes to Facebook and Google and what happened to just going to the library and getting into the Dewey Decimal System?
I don't know, man. Do they still have libraries?
They do. We could walk to the library if you want to continue this later on after we get through here. We can.
Do you have a cell phone?
Flip phone.
What the fuck is a cell phone? No. I actually had a couple of cell phones. If you don't shut them off and you put them in your pocket, all of the energy and all of the juice just goes to wherever it goes, the black hole where all of the stuff goes.
Right.
We were talking about me working for V2 Records earlier, working for Richard Branson, the happiest billionaire in the world.
Yeah.
He had he has a communication company. He has his own phone system over in Europe. And
really?
Because of that, my boss said, "Here, Keith, here's a gift. This is V2 and Virgin giving you a gift." And he gave me a cell phone. He said, "We're going to the South by Southwest, which is the world's largest music situation. There's going to be over 300 or 600,000 people here. And so here's what happens.
You're going to make it.
You're going to go. I have a list of 300 bands that I want to see. I go prepared."
When you were you say you're working for them, but you were a band on the label, right? You weren't actually. You were actually working at the label.
I was a circle jerk.
Oh.
I was still doing the circle jerk.
The circle jerks, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so you weren't working at the label, but you were a band on the label.
No, I worked for the label.
Oh.
I worked with the White Stripes. I worked with Moby.
What did you do on the label?
I was the A&R boy.
Oh, you were A&R.
I had to, all of the phone calls came through me. I was the secretary.
That's cool.
Not the secretary. I was the secretary.
Yeah.
And so all of the calls came through me.
Did you enjoy working at the label?
I had a blast. Yeah. I loved it because my boss was one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm. Who was that?
Guy named John Seidel.
Okay.
And I I got to sign a band. They let me sign a band.
Who's that?
They're called Neon. They're an Australian band that the way that I would describe them is, I want all of those kids out in the cornfield in the back of the car fucking their brains out while this music's being played on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Like summertime, teenage sex.
Celebratory.
Very much like Nirvana and Cheap Trick.
Wow.
Yeah, just your parents would love the music.
How many albums do they put out?
They put out one album.
And then it fell apart?
Well, we put out one album. But getting back to the cellular thing,
right.
My boss said, here's a cell phone. We're going to the South by Southwest. I go prepared. I have a list of 300 bands that I want to see. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I'm not going to see all 300 bands because my rule is I go to a room, I'm watching the band, I'm looking at the crowd. A lot of times you can tell what kind of band is happening by the people in their crowd. Mm-hmm. And if the kids are going ape shit, you got to stick around because the energy could be really happening and the band could be really happening. I have a rule where it's like I'll go see a band, and if they're not rocking it out the way they're supposed to be rocking it out by about the third song in, I got to go somewhere else.
Right.
And so I have the cell phone, and the directive is, Keith, if you're standing in one of these rooms and you're seeing a band and they're just, the whole place is going nuts, you call me on the cell phone and you tell me which room you're in and I'll be right there. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, what are you thinking? If this shit's fucking happening, I ain't getting on a cell phone.
Right. Yeah.
So that shot down the cell phone. I've had 2 cell phones and never figured out how the correct way to use them because I just did not care. The cell phone, like the computer, has removed people's souls from them.
Well, it makes them not present.
Like, really not present.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you think you've escaped that? Are you like kind of zen and like the moment, or more than most? Or how do you, because most people fall into that. I fall into it too. I'm guilty of it. So I'm just curious how.
Well, I'm not. So I'm proud of the fact.
No, and
I'm proud of the fact that I live in a cave. I'm proud of the fact that I didn't buy my first CD until about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I refused to. I got vinyl. Why do I need to listen to a CD?
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden I'm working in a record store and there's a box of bootleg CDs.
Yeah.
Like all of these Beatle recordings, all of the alternative takes, all of like 24 tracks of Strawberry Field, you know? And I'm a fan, and it's like I got to listen to this stuff. So now all of a sudden I'm buying these CDs and I don't have a CD player.
What about now? How do you take in music now?
However I can get it.
CDs or vinyl?
CDs, vinyl, on the
online,
MP3 or the MPX or whatever you want to call it, the JPL.
I like iTunes. I mean, I know that might be sacrilege to say to you, but I like it because it just gives me all the options right there. But
well, you know how to surf through it and navigate through all of it and get it all for free.
Well, no, I pay like monthly subscription thing.
Right, you're what? $10.
I don't know what it is. I put my card in one time, and that's what it's been. So they charge me automatically every month.
Yeah, I don't like iTunes. I don't like any of it.
Yeah.
Spotify.
Yeah.
My royalties for online, the songs that get played online. I think my last SoundCloud. Is it SoundCloud, or is that another company that?
That's another company.
Yeah, I can't keep up with all of that crap. I just want to live my life and not be bothered with any of it. I guess call me a simple man or what have you.
Right.
But call me real. You know, I want to keep it real, and you know, who needs to?
It's commendable, man. It's not easy to do in this day and age.
My royalty check from these online people is $20 every 3 or 4 months or whenever it is.
I don't even know what mine is. I honestly don't. It just goes to some business thing and that's it. I
know that it's good for a meal.
Yeah.
A meal.
Yeah, let's order a meal. I'm starving. Don't you want to order?
You have your. So you come to this. We're at the Desert Rose. This is your regular joint.
I'm a regular here on the weekends because my regimen is I will purchase an iced coffee, a really great iced coffee, at the coffee shop on the corner from my house. Then I will walk across the street to the Vons. I will purchase the Saturday edition of the LA Times, and then on Sunday I will purchase the Sunday version of the LA Times. Then I will walk up here, I will order some food, and they might have some kind of sporting event on television. I love sports. I don't look like a guy that played sports. I look like the guy who, when it came time for football, got his face rubbed in the grass or into the dirt. I was always picked to be like an offensive lineman, and the opposing player would be the guy that outweighed me by 200 pounds. So I was not... I could have probably played on the golf team at my high school, but golf is such a lame-ass sport. It should be, all of those people should just be buried next to where the gopher blew up the...
I like Bill Murray, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's order, yeah. Yeah, are you going to order something?
Oh, yeah, of course. I got to eat.
Yeah.
Being a diabetic, I got to eat.
You recommend what you just ordered?
They make a really great dish called shakshuka, which is, I want to say it's a Middle Eastern... Shakshuka. Yeah. I was close.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a white guy. I was born here. I was born 2 blocks from here. Yeah. I'm a white guy. I don't know all of this stuff.
Shakshuka is good.
Okay. Yeah. It's
what
tomato,
peppers,
onion,
eggs.
peppers, eggs. You can get, you have goat cheese?
Goat cheese? Yeah, we do.
See, and that makes it, that sends it to that part of the world. Well, we're part of a genre where we're stuck in a box. Mm-hmm. The whole punk rock hardcore thing, you don't get to... You don't get to be adventurous.
You don't change it up.
That's not part of the rules.
Right.
And having been doing this since 1977, it gets kind of tiring. It's like, come on, people, let's get more colorful.
Yeah.
It's been black and white for all of these years.
So are you getting more colorful?
Oh, we're getting very colorful.
How so?
Well, normally what we do is we state our influences, being bands like The Damned and Stiff Little Fingers and Blue Oyster Cult, and we love Black Sabbath. And this time around, we've been listening to krautrock. We love Neu. We love Einzelzende Neubauten, who are not krautrocks, but they're krauts. So we can lump them into that category.
Yeah.
We love Can. We also have a friend where we were working he builds his own equipment. He had been in a band called Man is the Bastard and Bastard Noise, which is just some of the most brutal shit you're ever going to hear. That just it wants to just melt all of the flesh off of your body. He, in his infinite wisdom, we said, so what's your major influence in all of your music? And he said, George Harrison went to India to go on his spiritual path, to find the guru and the yogi and all of that. And in doing so, not only did he meet Ravi Shankar, who would be, when it comes to Indian music, he's the main guy. He's the Elvis Presley of India. Before he met Ravi Shankar, he encountered other Indian musical organizations where he is listening to what equates to be an Indian orchestra of about 30 people.
Yeah.
And George Harrison, the first record George Harrison puts out on his own label is some of these musicians.
Right.
And that would be on his Dark Horse label.
Right.
This particular recording that we were told to go to had nothing to do with George Harrison. It was like this group, this Indian orchestra. It's fucking brilliant. It's just, let's go somewhere we've not been.
Right.
Take us to a faraway place.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we're stuck in a box.
Yeah.
The whole punk rock hardcore thing is nothing but a list of rules of what you can't listen to.
Right.
And who you can, and who's cool, who's not. This is how you're supposed to look. This is the way you're supposed to behave.
Why do you think that is?
It's everything that when we started playing music it was what we were opposed to.
Right. So why do you think it switched to that?
You know what? I could not answer that question
Right.
because I don't care.
Right.
You know,
Fear.
That's good. Fear.
Yeah.
And they're a really good band.
Yeah. I didn't mean the band, but yeah.
I thought you were. I thought that's the direction.
Coffee, actually.
That's coffee.
Yeah.
And you just water down his. Come
Well,
on
that's
now,
okay. I could have
Fabian.
let me see if it tastes good. Coffee,
Tastes
tea.
good. Sorry about that.
But don't
That's iced tea.
don't the
Yeah, that
fans
doesn't taste good.
don't the fans have a lot to do with it, Keith? Like,
Pardon me?
The fans.
You got to put your headphones on.
Well, that's what it's about. You
Right.
know. That's what it's about.
right, but
we
the
do
fans,
this. We do this for our fans, but at a certain point, some of our fans are going to bail on us anyways because they've heard enough.
And why wouldn't the fans
No, but I
enjoy
feel-
like
I
changing
feel
it
it's
up?
unwritten rules of like punk fans and hardcore
it's
where,
restricted.
where they're like, you cannot deviate from this. And then
Why
when,
is
when the
that?
bands do, they sort of like backlash at the bands.
Yeah, but I don't know. Backlashes are healthy. Like, it's good to upset people. It's good to
yeah, I
upset the
mean-
narrative. It's good to like go against the grain. That's what it's all
It's
about.
good to turn it upside down.
Exactly.
It's good to like punch it in the face.
It's boring not
100%,
to.
100%.
It's death not to.
But you know, I was telling Joe on a certain flag video that I happened to film you guys with Joe Burns in 2013 at Irving Plaza, and the video's amazing, and you guys were on fire. But I get these YouTube notifications daily of comments. So your
Thank you.
fans use the comment section of that video section to daily debate everything that you said that you cannot deviate from. Like, who does it better? And is it this? And is it that? And it's a constant battle with fans as to everything we were talking about.
And at one point, you get to step away from that and do something for yourself. You know, having done this as long as I've done this, there's a set expectation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm tired of living up to people's expectations. All I have to do is show up and do what I do, and do it to the best of my abilities, and let that speak for itself. And if that's not good enough, then go play on the freeway. Go listen to somebody else. You know, there's certain people, there's certain bands that have set certain bars that we can try for the rest of our lives to reach that bar and not ever even come close.
Like who?
Like the Bad Brains.
Right.
For a period of time, that band was untouchable. That band was the greatest band in the world.
Right.
There was a time when Aerosmith put out 3 albums, and they were the greatest they were the greatest band in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and a punk rock guy's not supposed to make a comment like that. A hardcore guy's not supposed to say, well, the
Aerosmith.
Rolling Stones went through a period when they were working with Jimmy Miller, and they recorded 6 albums that were untouchable.
Right.
You know, the New York Dolls, I have friends to this day think the New York Dolls are the greatest rock and roll band ever. And they don't even come close.
Right.
You know, the Rolling Stones step up on Goathead Soup
Yeah.
and play a song called Star Star, which is star fucker, star fucker, star fucker, star fucker, star. And the New York Dolls on their greatest day and their greatest performance are going to look up at that song and go, we can't go there.
Right.
You know, it's just there's certain things that happen and there's certain things that don't happen. And that's the way of the world. We just continue on our paths. We continue to to do the things that we do and hope that we're doing them to the best of our abilities, and that's the best that we can do.
It's the 4 agreements. Always do your best, never make assumptions, don't take things personal, and be impeccable with your word.
Just step up and do it the way that it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, Mick Jagger's an underrated songwriter because he's one of the greatest ever, and people don't really ever think of him like that.
Well, they always think of him being
the business guy.
Well, no, because he is part of one of the greatest rock music songwriting teams.
Yeah.
With Keith Richards.
Yeah, I feel like Keith gets all the credit.
Yeah.
And Mick is like a great. I mean, who wrote the lyrics? Beast of Burden. Those lyrics are insane.
Well, we actually have a song on our new record, the new Off album, that's based on a conversation between Keith Richards and Mick Jagger.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How's that one go?
We're in our rehearsal space, which is also our recording studio.
Yeah.
And we're working on what is the first song that we worked on as a band towards this new project.
Right.
And it's like, Keith, so do you have any idea for any lyrics? It's like, guys, we just played this song like 6 times. I'm still confused.
Right.
Where does the riff come in? Where's the verse? Where's the chorus? I'm lost.
And these are the lyrics that you're singing on this?
Well,
like that?
We are. That should be the lyrics.
I think so. Or at least like a prelude or some shit.
Anyways, we're like looking at each other. We're looking at each other trying to sort this out.
Yeah.
Like, well, what's the lyrical content? And it's like, dude, we just wrote the song, goddammit.
Right.
Come on, let's get real.
Yeah.
You know, give me some time to like let this settle in. My brain's still in a fog. So Dimitri, our guitar player, his setup in the rehearsal space is he's over by all of our merch tubs, where all of our T-shirts are sitting there waiting for us. They're going, take us on tour, take us on tour. We need to get out of this tub and we need to be on somebody's body, you know. And he looks up, in one of the tubs we have 2 of our Raymond Pettibone designed T-shirts. We have Wasted Satan. It says Wasted Satan on the side of the tub. There's one of our recordings is called Wasted Years, and the other recording is called Satan Did Not Appear. And on the tub it says Wasted Satan.
Yeah.
It's like, so now how do you describe Donald Trump without describing Donald Trump? You know, I hate the president. Let's revolt. Let's blow up the White House. All of that kind of punk rock kind of stuff. You know, let's keep it on that thread. Okay, but so how do we describe Donald Trump without describing Donald Trump? He's the guy that shows up to the party. He passes out in the lazy boy with a cigarette, and he ends up setting the sofa on fire with some guy who's passed out on it. So now we have this charred upholstery. We have this burnt body, and he's whistling the song, and he's going door to door, knocking like, I'm here to deliver the shit, and here it is for you.
That's crazy. Those are great lyrics. Everything you just said, that whole Donald Trump.
Well, it's based on a conversation between
imagery of that was fucking sick, dude.
Based on the song title was presented to us on the side of a fucking plastic tub,
right? Like
a 20-pound tub.
Yeah. So
and
it's called Wasted Satan.
It's called Wasted Satan.
That's a good album title too, maybe.
Well, we're going somewhere else because we're calling it Watermelon, and it's based on a science fiction movie that's attached to the soundtrack.
Okay.
The 25 songs were written for the soundtrack, but of course we've got to whittle it down because we've already filmed documentary style, guerrilla documentary style, the beginning of the movie where we're on tour and we hate each other. It's like we're supposed to be best friends. It's all for one and one for all.
Yeah.
And on this tour, we're discovering
That's a great idea. A fake documentary?
Well, it looks very, very real.
The new Dylan documentary is all fake.
Yeah, but the
Is
thing.
it?
Yeah, it's a gag. It's not. It's like they made it up in like editing and stuff.
Joseph, the reason.
Is Dylan in on it?
Oh yeah, of course, he's a genius, man.
And so is Joan Baez.
Yeah, all of them.
You know,
It's a
there's
gag.
footage of her hanging out with Mick Ronson. Speaking of going back to the man who sold the world,
Right.
that's Mick Ronson's guitar showcase.
Uh-huh.
And if you can't pick up on the greatness of Mick Ronson,
Oh, I love him.
then go play on the freeway,
he's-
like I said before.
Yeah, he's the greatest. I have
And
a
he's-
Rano Bender fuzz pedal. It's the best.
But he's part of the wild troupe, or whatever it's called, and it was Bob Dylan thinking, my two favorite artists right now are David Bowie and Lou Reed. And Mick Ronson played a big role in The Spiders from Mars and all of David Bowie's greatest recordings.
Yeah.
And he also played a role.
Did you see that documentary on Mick Ronson?
I haven't.
Dude, it is incredible. There's a documentary out about him and it talks about how underrated he kind of was in terms of inventing that era of that Bowie sound and not really kind of getting fooled.
Well, he also was responsible for the orchestration,
Right.
all of those string parts,
Right.
those brilliant genius. Like
Yeah.
you can't place this guy on a mountain high enough.
No, it's really true. It's really, really true.
and the brilliant thing about Mick Ronson is he came off the tip. There was a triumvirate of British guitar players that included Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page, who all played in the Yardbirds.
Right.
And Mick Ronson could have easily played in the Yardbirds, one of the greatest rock and roll bands ever. So getting back to Bob Dylan and his Wild Troupe, or whatever it's called, I had no interest in watching it because I heard the story of why Mick Ronson was brought into it.
Why?
And that was because Bob Dylan, at the time,
Loved
his
David Bowie.
love of David Bowie and his love of Lou Reed, it's like, I got to be like them.
Right.
So how do I be like them? Well, I'll call up the guitar player who played on those records. And Mick Ronson, it couldn't have been a worse fit.
Right.
At one point, they're playing a song, and Bob Dylan, it's like there's a guitar. Mick Ronson does a guitar solo, and the song just goes on and on and on and on, like some of Bob Dylan's songs can turn into a 10-minute opus or what have you. And all of a sudden, here's another opening, and it's perfect time for another guitar solo, and Mick Ronson steps up to do the solo, do a different solo, because he's capable of not repeating himself when it comes to this creative thing. And all of a sudden, Bob Dylan's like, "Oh no, this shit's not supposed to be happening." And he looks at the drummer and says, "Just end this right here, right now. Like, cut this guy off." And it was, I didn't even see it. I just heard the story. I heard how Mick Ronson really shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Right.
Mick Ronson apparently had been asked to join Sparks, one of the greatest pop bands, one of the greatest bands to come out of Pacific Palisades,
Right.
the brothers.
Are they UK now?
Well, no, they went to the UK.
They got famous in the UK.
And
yeah,
they
right.
put out 3 albums on Island that are brilliant from start to finish.
I got to meet those guys once.
And they're brilliant. They're really great guys.
Yeah.
I witnessed a concert down at Madame Wong's West. One of my friends had invited a band from Australia to come over. He was going to sign them to either Slash Records or Ruby Records, which was responsible for X and Fear and Violent Femmes and early Los Lobos and the Blasters and the Gun Club. Let's not fail to mention the Gun Club. And let's cap it all off with the Germs, that one Germs record, which is genius.
Listen
to the Germs.
Yeah.
He brought them over from Australia. They were here for a year. They played 4 shows. That was all they could get while they were here in the 1 year that they were here. I saw 2 of the shows. They were one of the most brilliant rock and roll garage rock bands I'd ever seen. Perfect from Australia, all a bunch of criminals. You know, that's everybody on that island, that giant rock. They're all crooks and thieves, and
that's right.
It's in their blood. But anyways, they played at a place called Madame Wong's, and I'm at this particular show where Chris D records their set off of the board onto cassette. I'm standing there and I'm looking around. The crowd is just really not existent. Maybe 12 people, 20 people there. And this band's just tearing it up, just ripping into it. And I look to my left, and the guy that's standing next to me is the youngest male brother. He played quarterback on the Pacific Palisades High School team, and he's the guy with the falsetto voice. You would say, this guy could never participate in sports. This guy had to be on the debate team. You know, this guy was probably, if he did participate in sports, he was on the tennis team. Or he was the water boy for the football team, but he happened to be the quarterback on the team, which meant he got to fuck all of the cheerleaders. Good for him. So Mick Ronson turned down the opportunity to become a member of Sparks, to go out on the Bob Dylan special extra
Rolling Thunder.
For Mick Ronson, it would have been called the Rolling Blunder.
Right.
Which is really sad and pathetic. But that's Bob Dylan. When Bob Dylan snaps his fingers, everybody lines up to do his shit. And
are you a fan of Bob Dylan?
I hated Bob Dylan for a zillion years.
Why?
And then I grew up and realized that he's one of the greatest lyricists.
Yeah.
All of that early stuff, all of that folk stuff, and then when he got the electric shit going on, all of that stuff.
Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61.
It's All Over Now, Baby Blue is one of the greatest songs ever fucking written.
It's incredible. What about Lou Reed?
Yeah.
Lou Reed, Lou Reed was my introduction to the Velvet Underground wasn't because I listened to the Velvet Underground. I thought the Velvet Underground were boring.
Really?
Boring.
Why?
Because they didn't rock my planet. I need Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper and Grand Funk. I need Uriah Heep and Deep Purple. I need shit beating me over the head.
Right.
I don't need any whamby-pamby stuff.
I love that first Velvet Underground record, though.
Well, we're going to get to the Velvet Underground because I saw David Bowie in 1972. He was my introduction to Lou Reed, who I would see on the I want to say his second solo album on RCA. I saw him play.
Which one was that?
His backup band were just a bunch of like long blonde stoner dudes out of a high school in Brooklyn somewhere. And he actually took them on tour, and I saw him at the Santa Monica Civic, and it was like nuts.
Right.
So my introduction to the Velvet Underground is from David Bowie to Lou Reed.
Yeah.
And in there, sandwiched in there is Mott the Hoople, Sweet Jane.
Yeah.
You know, Mott the Hoople doing just a genius version of Sweet Jane.
Yeah, Ian Hunter's still out there rocking it like 80. It's crazy. Thank you.
Oh, that steak looks good.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
But not as good as the turkey sausage.
Bon appetit. Oh.
Thank you.
So, what about Iggy Pop?
So is it polite to eat with a mouthful of food?
I don't know.
Yeah, go for it.
Are we going to find out?
I don't know. Like, if we should take a break and eat, or what?
Up to Keith. I'm fine.
Want to take a break and eat?
Well, let me finish my Velvet
Yes,
Underground
please.
story.
Okay, yeah.
I want to hear more Lou Reed
Okay.
stories. Yes.
Well, so this is my introduction to the Velvet Underground. I'm being introduced to them by like guys that are rocking it up. They're not playing it like the Velvet Underground. The Velvet Underground were the way that they performed and the way they recorded their music and the way that their music sounded. I could sit and listen to them sandwiched on the couch between my mom and dad. Now, of course, the lyricism is getting kind of dark and going to weird, ugly places, but that's okay. Long live Lou Reed.
I agree.
What's your favorite Lou album? That second one?
I love Transformer just because of Mick Ronson and David Bowie and their participation.
What about Berlin? You ever listen to Berlin?
I love Berlin. Yeah. I really love his first solo album, which has the bird on the street sitting on top of the Fabergé egg in the middle of the street, and it's like Broadway and whatever in New York, and there's a wave coming over the street, and it's the album cover is great, the songs are great.
What's that one called? Do you remember?
It's just called, I believe it's just called Lou Reed.
It's called Lou Reed.
Just
yeah.
go Lou Reed. When you can't come up with a title for your record, you just name it after yourself.
Yeah. I asked him, because I used to be friends with him, but and I asked him for a band name. He suggested I name my band Coos.
You spell that?
I don't know. It's Coos. It's like a slang for vagina.
Okay.
You know.
And I believe it's also the little foam device that you wrap your chilled beverage in.
That's
yeah.
A cozy.
Okay.
I
Or it could be a koozie.
A koozie, right. Yeah, I guess so.
He told me I should name one of my albums Breakless.
That's
I
a
had
good title.
Yeah, I had a bike that didn't have brakes, and he goes, "You should call your next album Joe Arthur Breakless."
I
It's a good one.
I drove a Chrysler from Hermosa Beach to San Diego, which is a good hour and a half, to see Deep Purple on the Machine Head tour at the San Diego Sports Arena, and there were no brakes in the car. And we're in the fast lane going about 65, 70. But that's what we did because, we're living life. Let's just go out there, live and learn. And if you're on the high dive, you don't need to look down to see how much water is down below. Just jump off. We're kids, we're teenagers. Yeah, 2 weeks from now we'll be getting back up and doing it all over again.
You knew Joe Strummer too, right?
Joe Strummer.
He was a fan of yours.
Joe Strummer. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we try to hold our ego in check, and all of a sudden we're talking about all of the praise that's been lumped upon us. I can get into a long list. But Joe Strummer, I was bartending down on Melrose at a place called Smalls. Joe was a member of the Pogues at the time. The Pogues were recording here in Los Angeles. I have no reason why, but they had gathered here in Los Angeles, and it was Joe's turn to buy all of those alcoholic, drunken, limey goofballs. It was his turn to buy the next round. So he came up to the bar, and he looked at me and he said, "Keith, I love your body of work. Your body of work is great. Some of the greatest music I've listened to." And I didn't know how to respond. I'm like looking at Joe Strummer and I'm going, fucking Guns on the Roof, Safe European Home, Tommy Gunn, White Riot, working for the Clampdown. Are you kidding? This guy's on a pinnacle that nobody touches. He's up there with Bob Dylan. He's up there with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards and Pete Townsend and Ray Davies and Lennon and McCartney. He's in that group. And I'm like fucking floored. I'm just like, I don't even know what to say. So I say thank you. And I love you too. And your favorite album of mine is the second Clash album that was produced by Sandy Pearlman, who produced all of the Blue Oyster Cult records. And that would be the record that all of the punk rocks hate because of the production.
What's it
and
called?
Those songs, Give 'Em Enough Rope.
Right.
That record fucking rocks from start to finish. And yes, it is polished and it's buffed. But it was exactly what the Clash needed at that time. They needed that bump up because what they were doing was they were starting to move into new musical territories that punk rocks aren't supposed to go to.
Right.
You know, they would eventually get into some disco, and they would get into some dance, and they would get into some
Hip-hop.
Motown and some Stax and some hip hop, and they would get into just some good old rock and roll. And that's what made the Clash so brilliant and so genius, that they stepped out of their box and said, enough of the box, mate. Now we're moving on.
Mm-hmm.
My greatest compliment, and I will continue to say this for the rest of my life. At one point in my life, I had discovered that my dad had bought a turntable, and it was time to start buying vinyl records to spin on this turntable. I believe the fourth album that I bought was Chuck Berry's Greatest Hits, a double album. I put on side 3. It never left the turntable for about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself, along with my fellow members of the Circle Jerks, on a disastrous tour. We were signed to Mercury Records, and Mercury Records couldn't reach behind themselves and grab their asses. They could line up, they could have all of the staff members line up next to each other, and they could all reach around back and not grab one ass cheek. We're on this disastrous tour. It's like we're coming to the break. We're in St. Louis, Missouri. We're playing at a place called Mississippi Nights on the Mississippi River. And we're jamming away. There's 800 kids just going fucking bananas. They're going ape shit. It's just like the energy is undeniable. This is like what a real rock, punk rock, whatever kind of gig you want to describe it as. This is what's supposed to be happening. All of a sudden, there's a break between a couple of our songs, and there's a guy standing at the front of the stage, and he's waving. And he's wearing his little skipper hat, little black guy, waving. And our roadie recognizes him, our stage guy recognizes him, and immediately runs to the front of the stage. He knows who it is. He comes to us and says, he's pointing at him as a couple of people are helping him get up on stage, because you don't say no to this guy. When he steps up and says he wants to play with you, you play with him. You toss any of your mentality right out the goddamn motherfucking window. He's standing on stage. He's standing in front of Greg Hetson. Our roadie's like excited. This guy wants to play with you, and it's like Greg looks at us. He says to our roadie, cut my rig in half, turn my rig into two parts. Mm-hmm. You know, we got 2 Marshall heads, we got 2 Marshall cabinets, and there sits my Les Paul Jr., which was basically what Les Paul created for Mary Ford, a dainty, slim version of a Les Paul, only we would call it an SG.
Right, SG, yeah.
So Chuck Berry's playing this Les Paul SG, and Greg looks at us and just says, play along. You won't know what he's playing until he gets to the chorus. And I'm standing there, I'm in awe. I'm this guy, he wrote the book. There would be no Keith Richards.
No Bob Dylan.
No Johnny Thunders, no Beatles,
Bob
no
Dylan
Beach
took a lot
Boys. None of them would exist if it wasn't for the blueprint that this guy created.
That's true.
And we get through playing. I'm at a loss. I'm just like, I'm floored. My jaw's on the ground.
How many songs did you do?
We played one song. It was Roll Over Beethoven, and the kids went just fucking nuts. They would have burned that place to the ground if they would have had the opportunity to. I left out Angus Young. Mm-hmm. Because Angus Young is also, if there's an altar and they're all looking up at Chuck Berry, It would be Angus Young sitting sandwiched in between Keith Richards and Chuck Berry, and Johnny Thunders would be there, and
Bob Dylan got his phrasing, so much of his phrasing right from Chuck Berry.
And you have George Harrison and John Lennon and the Wilson brothers and the Beach Boys. All of these guys, they would be lost if there was no Chuck Berry. On his way out, as he was exiting, because he saw the energy. He saw what was going on. He saw that this is what rock and roll is supposed to be about. On his way out, as he was saying goodbye to the club owner, he pulled the club owner to him and said, "You tell these guys that these guys are one of the greatest rock and roll bands I've ever seen." That's
amazing.
You don't get a better compliment than that.
No. That's incredible.
And that was the night that I thought I lost $10,000 in my backpack.
How'd that happen?
I'd placed my backpack under a chair in the dressing room, and like an idiot
you had 10 grand in there, though?
Walking around in this euphoria.
In the South.
There's no drug that replaces what I was just told. I'm walking around just in a mental state of just being up in the clouds.
Right.
How do you get over a compliment like that? He told Keith Richards to get off the stage.
That's true. He slapped Keith Richards. I met Joe Strummer. I got to smoke my first ever spliff with Joe Strummer at Real World in England. He was rolling a tobacco thing and putting hash on it. I never had seen. I was young. I just had got there. I was like a kid. I never had seen anybody roll a spliff before. So I was like, what the fuck is he doing? And whatever that is, I'm going to participate in it. But I was sober at that time already. I was 25 and I was already going to like meetings and being sober and everything like that.
Okay, but you smoke some hashish.
Hash with Joe Strummer, yeah.
And some tobacco.
And that was it. It was like it came around twice and it didn't do anything.
And did you feel like running out and trying to find the hash dealer?
I did. And I did end up, it did create that. I ended up cooking, and I could never get high enough off of it. And so I ended up cooking it in their kitchen putting it on toast. And then I was making a record with John Leckie, who produced like the Stone Roses and stuff like that. And all of a sudden I gave him a piece of toast and me a piece of toast. And then we like all of a sudden it's like hallucinating that the speakers were on fire and shit like that. 'Cause I had put so much hash on this toast. And then the next day I went to sleep, and the next day I didn't wake up till 6 p.m. And I ran to the studio. We were supposed to meet at noon. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
But it's your record, right?
It was my record. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And he goes, don't worry about it. I just got here myself. I just woke up too. Because we both slept the whole next day based on this hash sandwich that kind of started with Joe Strummer. But
and Leckie, as a producer, is way happening.
Yeah, well, he worked with John Lennon too. He was an assistant back in those days, and first Radiohead or the Bends.
Leckie was. There was also Martin Rushent, and there was, the guys that produced Magazine and. What else was Leckie responsible for?
A ton.
Like Buzzcocks. That might have been Martin Rushent.
I don't know. Let's look Leckie up real quick. This is what technology is good for. Shit like this.
There you go. When all else fails.
But yeah.
Now, do you have the device in the app in your phone where you're actually witnessing somebody and you know nothing about them, and you hear a song and it's like, who is this? And you put the phone up in the air, and the phone listens to the song, and then the phone tells you, this is Jaime in the Nosebleeds.
All these do that.
Shazam, yeah.
No, well, you don't even need that. You just do it through Siri. Yeah, the Radiohead, the Stone Roses, the Levelers, Muse.
Levelers, love that.
XTC.
That's who.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he produced like the first couple of XTC records. We went through this period where the only eggs you ate were egg whites because you couldn't eat the
healthy
yolk.
part.
The yolk is the most healthy part. It gives you
Got all the vitamins and nutrients.
It gives your hair the shine, and it
That's
gives your
right.
skin the sheen. And
Exactly. I'm learning a lot about that kind of stuff and the sort of evils of carbohydrates and stuff like that.
I'm a diabetic,
yeah,
so it's like...
So you don't do carbohydrates or any kind of that kind of thing, do you? A little bit of fruit's okay, but...
Dude, you need to eat the stuff that cleans out your pipes.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I don't know anymore. I think we've been lied to so thoroughly by in so many ways, and it's like a lot of new information is coming out. Like I'm operating on ketosis now, where I'm using just fat as my resource of like energy instead of like that sugar spike and all that.
So you're doing the keto
diet. I'm into it.
See, I did some research and knew because of the cost of insulin is just so ridiculous. You know, and that's part of the slave trade and the brainwashing scenario.
Exactly. And people's mood disorders too. Like when you stop having going off of sugar, your mood stabilizes so much. I'm so much more calm than I was. It's like that's the part of the diet that appeals to me the most.
I have so much energy. I sleep 2 hours a night.
Yeah, but dude, I'm the same way. I sleep more than 2 hours, but I have a lot of...
Did I just...
projectile? No.
Toss one into your lap?
I could only be so lucky. No, didn't make it there. But I appreciate the concern.
You could, when you're talking to Victoria Williams later on this evening, you could go...
Fingers crossed.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Because she's amazing.
Yeah.
You are not going to meet a nicer person.
Yeah.
And she's really talented. She's really
great
sweet.
Songwriter.
And she's where's she from? South Carolina.
We're gonna hunt her down. We're gonna go up there.
Yeah.
But so you're dealing with the diet stuff, and obviously, and can you reverse your diabetic situation, or what do you think?
I was told if you go on a raw diet, which is nuts, raw meat, and raw vegetables, you can reverse it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
just eliminate carbs. Eliminate carbs. Full on. Eliminate carbs.
Here's what I did, and it was really, really simple.
What?
Really super simple. I've lost 12 pounds over the last about 7 weeks. Without really even thinking about it.
Right.
No bread.
No bread.
No
dude.
pizza.
No way.
I will eat pizza here and there.
No. N-O.
Dude,
it's a non-starter. Just
being a guy that works in a band, our line of work.
No,
there's
don't use that as
Domino's.
an excuse.
There's a Domino's pizza at the end of the night, and when you're hungry, and you have a choice between
go
a
get an
Snickers
omelet at a
bar,
diner.
But pizza's not that in the grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of things,
it's poisonous.
It's better to eat pizza in the morning than cereal. In the morning.
Both are bad. They're the same thing. Both are both are carbs and sugar, and creating tons of inflammation and diabetic conditions and inflammation in the body and the brain.
Well, you're really adamant, but you didn't let me finish
go ahead.
My scenario.
Yeah.
Because I love pasta. And nobody knows the proper way to present pasta. It's always a big plate of all of these noodles and all of this carbohydrate, and then a little bit of tomato sauce or whatever, garlic or olive oil or chopped tomatoes. I read about this in Cosmopolitan magazine. My mom had a subscription to Cosmopolitan magazine, and I read about this in the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
The proper way to present the pasta is it's 3-to-1. Your pasta is 1, and everything else that you put on the pasta is your 3. You're supposed to pile on the stuff that you would pile on top of the pasta and not make it about the pasta.
Right. Interesting.
I've eliminated pasta.
Yeah.
And I love pasta.
Yeah, me too. By the way, I'm adamant, like, because I'm getting great results out of this, and I'm just trying to, like, he wants to lose weight and clear up some of his stuff too. So I'm just saying this is a diet that can work for that. But I love pasta and pizza and all that shit too. It's not like, you know, I live in New York.
At the same,
you know, it's like, dude, I lived off of that. So, you know.
Well, there's more to it.
Yeah.
Because you eliminate bread.
Right.
And I love a cheeseburger. Nothing better than a cheeseburger, except I would substitute a turkey patty instead of beef.
Right.
You know, no big deal because we've eaten enough beef, we've eaten enough McDonald's and Burger King and all of that crap growing up. You know, now it's time to move on from all of that, which is also not that difficult to do. The situation with the burger is you eliminate the bun. I go to Fat Burger and they make me a turkey patty and they put it on top of a bed of lettuce with all the other stuff that I would want on it.
Right.
And it's just as tasty, if not more tasty.
Yeah.
You know, being a diabetic, one of the first things they tell you, one of the first rules is when you're looking at a piece of fruit, you're not looking at the whole piece of fruit. You're looking at that piece of fruit, you're going to cut it in half. You're not eating the whole piece of fruit. So you eat half a banana. You eat half an apple, you eat half an orange. You're going to eat watermelon, you eat a couple of slices of watermelon, and you leave it at that.
Yeah.
You do need the fruit. It does help energize you. You need the roughage, just like being a diabetic.
Unless you go into ketosis, then you don't need that stuff. If you go into ketosis, then you're using fat as your fuel source.
I've been there. I've been in the.
It's a flip. It's hard to get there, but once you're there, then that's what you're doing.
I've been in
ketosis for like a month now.
I went into ketosis.
Yeah.
And I was in a coma.
Oh, really?
Where I was fully awake.
Right.
Fully aware of what was, like if the wind blew through the window in the hotel room.
You went into a coma because of ketosis?
I went into. It was ketosis induced.
Wow.
Because I didn't eat. You know, on an international flight where you're flying and it's like a one-day thing, 24 hours out of your life.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're connecting flight from Heathrow to Oslo, Norway.
Yeah.
Has nothing, no food to serve.
What about fasting? Do you ever fast?
No. Being a diabetic, it's like
that.
I gotta keep the insulin and the.
I see.
I gotta be on I gotta be on.
Gotta be regular.
I gotta be regular. Yeah.
So what was your? Ehud said you want to talk about your morning routine as well. Like,
I'm just curious, as a diabetic, how does that go with tour life and like what do you? I see you traveled with. Is that an EpiPen or is that the insulin?
This is my insulin. It's in pen form, very convenient. What I do, the way that I've been trained, is that I look at the food that I'm eating. On this plate, there's nothing that requires any kind of insulin.
Right.
Now that actually, depending upon the fruit and the ripeness and the sweetness of the fruit, that could be 3 or 4 bumps of insulin. And that's how it gets played. And if I say I eat this is a bowl of fruit. Normally you eat a cup of fruit. That would be like 1 bump of insulin, depending upon what it is. Now, if it's a handful of grapes that are very sugary and sweet, then that could be 2 bumps of insulin. The way that I'm trained is, if you know what you're going to eat, then you know the amount of insulin to use. You get into that program. Now, me, I eat out a lot. I don't really eat at home. I'm just too lazy. I'm too busy. I got too much stuff going on. And my expenses are so low that I get to fly under the radar. So here I am. This would be like on the weekend, this would be my regimen. There's also the LA Times that I would read, and the first section I would read would be the sports section, because I find that to be the most interesting and the least bothersome of all the other bullshit that's in the paper.
Because it's just straightforward,
And
without an agenda.
then I go, because I care about sports, and you're supposed to look at me and go, you're not supposed to be that guy. You know, you're in a punk rock band, and it's all of the jocks wanted to kill you, and it's like, I know a lot of jocks.
That's just in your mind, though.
but
Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit.
Here's the thing: the punk rocks do.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess they do. But who are they? Like, where are like?
we hate the jocks because they hate us. You know, and it's like, I grew up in a scenario where I was surrounded by athletes. There's a big difference between an athlete who's riding a skateboard or skiing in the snow or surfing or just jogging or, you know, skimboarding or body surfing. Those are the people that I grew up around. My jock friends were actually all really decent, good guys. They weren't a bunch of just like, I got to work out and I got to like weigh 100 pounds and I got to drink the special drink and, you know, I'm going to be playing in the NFL. We live where we're situated right here. This is Los Feliz. We are part of, well, they'll call it Los Angeles. We are part of Los Angeles, one of the world's largest prison camps is right down the street. It's called South Central Los Angeles. The kids that grow up there are not a lot of opportunities for them to be able to get out of the prison camp called South Central Los Angeles.
Right.
So how do you elevate yourself? How do you jump over that wall? How do you leap over those hurdles? You could play sports.
Yeah.
You could be the running back for the University of Southern California Trojans. You could earn yourself a scholarship. So now you have to go to school, and with the scholarship, you don't get to just be a jerk off. You gotta maintain certain grades. So now you're getting an education, which you might not have been presented. Now you're being able to move away from any kind of possible gang affiliation, or just getting shot on the street in a drive-by, or some shootout where you have the Pyrus and the Bloods or the Crips. You get to elevate yourself out of a situation where maybe the only answer for you to get out of there is doing drugs.
Right.
You know, that's the reason why I care about organized sports.
Right.
And organized sports, for the most part, suck.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But you have, I firmly believe that we need, and it's another form of slavery. It's a bunch of white guys with a bunch of black guys playing for them, doing whatever they're told to do. But the fact of the matter is that they get out of the ghetto that they're in.
Right.
So I firmly, wholeheartedly believe in, if they are going to be jocks, they're not worried about punk rocks. They're not worried about people going around stapling flyers to telephone poles. They're not worried about any of that. They're not worried about showing up to the gig and beating up a bunch of knuckleheads. They're not worried about that because they're doing something else.
Right. Don't you think the world has opened up to a point where like these kind of like structures of like punk rock, like rules and regulations, are kind of like dissipating into like nonsense, though, just because of how open everything is being and how all these different segments of society are bleeding into each other, and it's okay to be both a jock and into punk rock at the same time?
More power to you if you can do that and you understand the situation. I think the whole thing's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I do too.
I think life is just ridiculous.
Well, like I've become an athlete over the last 3 years, and that's helped my art and my music and everything like nothing else has ever helped it. I mean, because when I go on a run, that's when ideas for poetry comes into my mind and all that kind of stuff. It's the oxygen I'm taking in that's inspiring me, and it's like I see it as like this holistic approach rather than this idea of like, oh, I should just be like, you know, smoking a bunch of weed and hanging out and watching and waking up at 2 p.m. You know, I like getting up at the crack of dawn and going on a run and then playing music. You know, it's a different way of doing it, but
being awake and aware and being fully into the whole thing.
Totally, man.
Because
being healthy and
morning time.
It's just a great. It's genius hours.
Morning time when you're laying in bed and the window's open in weather like this, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of birds that are communicating amongst each other.
Yeah, and the work you do in the morning, it's like almost like you can achieve like 3 times as much. Like you can do 1 hour of work and get like 3 times as much done as if you would wait till like the afternoon, I find.
I'm in a situation where I had to walk away from what could have turned into a relationship, but it was just a 6-month. At the end of the 6 months, it's so where do I stand in your life? And the response was, "You're my boss."
You're my boss.
And you're my friend.
I'm my friend. Why were you the boss?
Because I had the business that she wanted to work for. And ultimately, I would find out that her whole thing was just a facade.
Yeah.
I mean, I had friends that stepped up and said, she's a cardboard cutout.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to converse with her, and it was just like talking to, say you want to
Nobody was home.
So you want to get your picture taken with George W. Bush down on the Santa Monica Pier.
Right.
And the guy has the room full of all of these
That's
cardboard.
who you dated, a cardboard cutout of George W.
And she
Bush.
was gorgeous. It was just
a
like
hot version.
fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, ain't that a bitch?
It really is, but it's like what I'm finding is every morning as I'm reading the newspaper, certain things are being said in the newspaper that just like fire off all of the neurons are starting to go off, and it's like, okay, and I write on the front of the newspaper like 2 sets of lyrics for a couple of songs.
So you get lyrics from the newspapers,
and because I'm bummed over the
loss,
situation.
heartbreak.
Now I'm writing love songs, which I don't really normally do.
So you fell in love.
Head over heels in love.
Uh-oh.
And I went to one.
Hey man, at least you can still fall in love. Like that's an accomplishment in this world.
Well, look, we live in it's a horrible, horrible world. It's not getting better. The only way it gets better is if we make it better for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts with like right here, like right now, being the best person, having a really great heart and spirit.
Yeah.
And your world is your world, and it starts and ends there. It doesn't matter, but all of this other crap that's going on, it's just that all of that stuff's getting worse. All of our situations are not getting better.
Have you heard of Ho'oponopono?
No, I heard of Calipono, which was the 2 guys from Hawaii, the 2 acoustic guitar players.
Well, that's funny because this is a Hawaiian prayer. It's called Ho'oponopono, and it helps with things like heartbreak. Because what you basically do is like a mantra that you just say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
And now how many times are you going to repeat that?
Oh, dude, I repeat that shit like all day sometimes. And you apply it to like somebody breaks your heart or something. You apply it to them, and it relieves you of a lot of the trauma of it, and it enables you to live out of inspiration rather than out of memory. That's the idea, and to take full responsibility. And like this, Dr. Hugh Lin healed a whole mental asylum for the criminally insane just using Ho'oponopono by reviewing their files and taking on their disorder as his own because it entered his field of consciousness. And once that happened, then he could help heal it, which is pretty miraculous.
Well, my thing is, very early on, at the beginning of the situation that I found myself in, I was talking with my mom, and I would place her at the very top of. She would be the head spiritual guidance counselor.
Okay.
She said, Keith, this is a situation where you follow your heart. You do not let your head get in your way. Do not let your head get in the way, because that's when it gets ugly. She said, you have a really great spirit. Just go with it.
That's nice of your mom to say that.
I said, she told me she was 29 years old. At the very end of the situation, I found out she was like 22 years old. So 7 years, I'm 63 years old.
Right.
I'm not really supposed to be going to a place like this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a rock star kind of move. And I refuse to be a rock star. Anyways, throughout all of this.
Well, how'd you meet her? Did she come to like...
She presented herself as a model for a photo shoot. I have a clothing company.
Okay.
And one of the guys that I'm partners with decided on a moronic level to do a photo shoot and have some people show up and wear our T-shirts.
What's moronic about that? Don't you need to present the T-shirts with a
It was
model
too
on?
early.
Oh, okay.
And the way that it
ready.
went down, there was
Right.
the photographer was somebody that was just learning how to use the camera
I
that he
got
was
you.
using.
All right.
So it was a wasted situation. And later on, it was like, Keith, you gotta come. We're having a party. All of the people that are part of the photo shoot are going to be at this party. And it's like, I'm busy. I'm writing lyrics, or I'm trying to learn songs. And he said, no, there's going to be somebody here that we need to introduce you to.
And that was her?
It was her. And I was floored immediately. But I was also questioning.
By how beautiful she was, or her personality, or all of it?
Well, her personality was just, she has a very sweet personality. A very, it's in our animal kingdom, there's a creature called the Black Widow. And the female Black Widow spins the web and leaves all of her, whatever, her juices and her flavors and her smells. And it's like every boy Black Widow has a hard on and needs to get there immediately. And of course, when all of these poor, pathetic Black Widow boys get onto the web, thinking that maybe it turns into a trampoline and I'm going to be able to jump up and down, and it's like, I'm not moving, I can't go anywhere. And then the female Black Widow shows up and just sucks all of them fucking dry.
That goes back to brahmachari, no fap. Don't let it suck. Don't let anything suck you dry. Black Widow boys.
I got lured in.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
And that's life.
That is life.
Live and learn, and move on.
How long did that relationship last?
6 months.
Okay.
Luckily, it was just 6 months.
Right.
And there was all of this other stuff going on behind my back, and it was just like, so I'm just supposed to be the free-flowing guy that volunteers to be in a open relationship. That I've already been in like 3 different open relationships.
Yeah.
And open relationships always
fail.
Always.
Yeah.
You bet on the failure.
Is it because of jealousy?
Well, dude, like, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do if you're like 6th in line? What do you do?
Yeah, I couldn't deal with that. When I was younger, that idea appealed to me because I didn't want to be monogamous. But now I actually just want to be in a monogamous, legit relationship where people love and respect each other, and we can make babies.
And you prop each other up, and you're there for each other,
That's
and you care. And it's like if you're in a
and we can trust
situation where
each other and we don't break the trust.
your world's falling apart, and she's gonna say, you know what?
Yeah, I'm here for you.
It all
still.
gets better.
Right.
We're gonna figure out a way to make this better.
Yeah.
And it's like these open relationships.
It's not like that.
No, it's not. No. Get in line.
Nah,
and ultimately somebody loses.
Well, also too, because your energy, like that's like the most, like that's the connection to your most vital energy, your like most personal, intimate energy. You have to be very careful who you're sharing that with, because you're taking on their energy. And if you do energy work and you work on building your energy, That's like a heavy investment of time and energy of
It's
like getting
your
your
aura.
own, your aura, getting all that stuff together.
When your
like,
chakras are all firing on the
I
same.
worked so hard at that. Like, what am I gonna do? Just like throw that away here? I used to. I mean, I used to be like that.
It's easy to.
But
when you're younger,
when
it's
you're
easy to
younger,
be free flowing and just go for it.
I certainly was like that, but I have certainly not been like that in years, and I don't intend to be like that anymore. So,
well, I've been in 3 open relationships.
Yeah.
And none of them were even remotely worth being in.
Yeah. They seem wasteful.
Well,
it seems wasteful in its nature to me because.
And it also turns into a situation where you're being lied to.
Well, yeah.
And nobody in this world filled with all of the liars that are out there, why would you, amongst all of your friends.
And who's got time for that?
It's
like, who's got time for more than one person? It's like, if you like really use your time wisely, you barely have enough time just to have a real relationship with your fucking self, let alone somebody else. And then you want to talk about multiple somebody else's. Like, it's just like, come on, man. That means you're avoiding yourself. I mean, not to be Mr. Judgmental. I'm sure somebody's watching this going, I'm in an open relationship and motherfucker, fuck you, And fair enough. Like, whatever.
Hey,
to each your own. If you can make it, if it's working for you, this is just go for it. And God bless, Like, no judgment in terms of moral. Is it moral or not? That's not what this is about. It's more just like, I don't see it working for myself, and that doesn't interest me at all. And I could see how it, like, okay, maybe there are occasions when it could work, but it's like, come on, even somebody who's in one of those would have to know that's few and far between, because you're dealing with people, and people are fucked up usually. Like, it's hard to find a sane one, let alone 2 sane ones, let alone 3 sane ones. Like, I mean, all right, yeah, I don't know. Like, there was a lot of people that would argue that.
In the situation that I was in, one of the last conversations we had when we were together in my car, she went on to an astrological site on her cell phone.
No, I'm sometimes guilty of that.
I'll read my fortune every morning, and probably
I take it with a grain of salt, but yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly adhere to the majority of the stuff that I read.
Yeah.
And maybe your sign doesn't allow you to do that. Mine
does. I believe in synchronicity too, and I believe the universe. I mean, I believe in messages going by on the side of a bus speaking to me. Like, But anyway,
this conversation was, you're a Virgo. That would be me.
I'm a Libra,
and I'm a Scorpio. My mom's a Libra. See, so there's not a lot of separation.
That the Scorpio woman is alluring and, can be dangerous.
She tells me we're 82% compatible. Now, if you care for someone, you say something like that.
Right.
If you don't care for someone, you don't make a comment like that.
Right.
You don't place them.
Unless you're being manipulative.
Okay, 82%. That's like a B+.
That's really good.
That's really, really good. In this day and age, if you find somebody that you're that compatible with, you better fucking jump on and go for the ride.
There's something that people do that are manipulators called future faking, and it's like that sucks you in deeper to like pretend like they're more into something than they are to manipulate you to like get you under their thumb, or like what you were saying too about the Black Widow, Widow web, that's called future faking.
Let's go to the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger and his
under my thumb.
Right. Well, then we could also go. Look at that stupid girl. Look at that stupid girl. Yeah. And that's what it turned out to be.
Right.
How would you go back to somebody that over the course of 6 months lied to you so many times?
Yeah, you don't, bro. You don't go back. You don't. Because if somebody's lied to you, even really hardcore, really hardcore once, you gotta really. But if it's been more than once, forget it. It's a wrap. It is a wrap because you can never trust again. And that's a pattern of behavior, and it's dangerous. It's very dangerous.
And I feel really good.
Yeah.
Because I think about her.
Right.
And then I think about the song by the Beast of Bourbons where it's like, I think about you all the time and I'm just going to rub your nose. I'm going to drag you through the shit and rub your nose in it.
Yeah.
Like a really hateful, spiteful, ugly. And I'm not going to be that person.
Right.
It's like, hey, it is what it is and it's out of my control. See, I also work a program.
Yeah.
And I was told by one of my millennial buddies who got busted in Me Too, like seriously. Keith, I'm sober now. I've been sober for over a year.
Right.
And I'm learning about the program, and I'm learning when I need to like work certain steps in my program. And he said, you're in a situation, because I'm talking to him, I'm saying, I jumped down her throat and I just fucking tore into her like a little ferocious, back into the corner, like little hairy animal, bigger than a rodent, of course. And he said, well, you need to go and you need to apologize to her. You need to work one of your steps. You need to make an amend. And I did, and it didn't matter. Because when I jumped down her throat, that was when she realized that, because I had been nothing but a gentleman all the way through. I had been nothing but kind and nice, and, I got to make your world a little bit better.
The adult in the relationship, and then you showed vulnerability at that moment.
I showed some. It was very ugly.
Yeah.
And I apologized, and I didn't really need to apologize because I was apologizing to somebody that just didn't care.
Or sometimes a lot, if you're dealing with somebody who's, got NPD, then not only do they not care, but they're actually going for a reaction like that, and that is their fuel source, is your energy, and also then blame shifting and going into victim mode, and then where you do have to end up apologizing, and then it's like you've been maybe in a situation where you got abused, and then now you're having to apologize to someone who actually mistreated you, even though you reacted in an over-the-top way. That could have been how it was designed to be played out. I'm not saying that it was. I don't know the situation well enough, or her, but I'm saying that is something humans do engage in all the fucking time, and that is a very common mode of behavior.
The tug of war, back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's good that you apologized anyway, just for your own self. But that's where the Ho'oponopono thing comes into play, because it makes you, instead of what it does is it elevates you out of, like, even though you might have been victimized by a situation, you can take responsibility for the situation, that on some level you created it, and you even apologize, not to the person directly, but within your own mind, to that energy force, that person. You depersonalize it on some level and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. It just enables you to move on faster. It's basically like a cheat code in the Matrix. That's the way I look at it. For people that don't like woo-woo spiritual stuff, look at it like a cheat code in the Matrix. It's just like you're playing a video game, and if you want to, elevate yourself out of that situation, this is like the spiritually sound way of doing that.
Power up.
Power up. Yeah.
A video game.
Yeah, exactly. It's a power up. Exactly.
The mushroom from Mario.
Yeah. It's the mushroom from Mario.
So
Okay.
now,
Yeah.
what are you doing now? Taking insulin?
I'm getting ready to shoot up some. This is the last batch of Humalog, my diabetologist, who I would like to thank.
Shout out to
Dr. Ann Peters at Keck, which is USC, saved my life, because early on, I've had diabetes for 22 years. And I'm just now starting to wrangle it into a place that's totally livable. The last time I visited her, we talked about cutting out all of the carbs. She was floored. She said, "This is genius.
Yeah.
Your numbers for all of the people that I've worked with, and I work with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
This number that just came up is genius." That's how she described it. She was just like, "This is out of all of the people I've worked with, this is the greatest thing that's happened."
But doctors don't usually tell people, like, cut out the carbs, right?
Doctors usually want to just keep you on the pharmaceutical.
Right, exactly, because it's a money-making scheme. If they tell you, like, cut out the carbs, do some intermittent fasting, you can cure yourself of this kind of stuff, but then they don't keep getting the paycheck.
But she's also the one that preaches.
She might be a good one.
You got to go on the satin. I said, what do I need to do to not go there? Because that's one of the most. No, it was not even that.
Oh.
She said, you have very high cholesterol, which is. They preach that.
Like,
no, I understand. No. I'm in a band with a guitar player who has high cholesterol.
Cholesterol's not evil.
He looks like he's ready to fuck the world.
Dude, I'm sure my cholesterol is probably over the top, but it's like I run every day 5 miles, and it's like it's no problem.
They want to put me on the satin, and it's like I know how evil and nasty and like it works in reverse.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you some diet information from YouTube.
Well,
if you can figure out
I
YouTube.
said, I asked her, I stood there and I looked at her as I was getting ready to leave. I said, "So what do I need to do to not have to go there?"
Yeah.
I told her, "I'm not going to be the guy that's going to be lining up at the Rite Aid purchasing like $5,000 worth of pharmaceuticals every month.
Yeah.
Not going there.
Right.
Not going to, I'll do everything in my power to not go there."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "You need to eliminate everything that comes from 4 legs." And I just started going, that means I don't get to eat a cheese enchilada, and I don't get to eat pizza, and I love a filet. I love, like, once or twice a month eating a petite filet mignon, a 3 or 4 ounce filet mignon. And it's like, now I
Have you researched the carnivore diet at all? Like, have you researched any of that stuff? What people are doing with that and what they're healing from?
Well, what about the Omnivore diet?
I don't know. I'm like, you should check out that though. Do some research on that.
I'm actually in a really great place.
That's good.
So it's like, I have to learn lyrics to 25 songs, and I'm not gonna start researching the Omnivore diet or the carnivore diet, or how many snow cones you're allowed to eat. And
no snow cones, bro. 0 is the. I could just tell you, I could skip the research on that. 0 snow cones.
Okay, getting back to
0 is the right answer on that one.
Okay, getting back to the an early part of this conversation.
Yeah.
When I was told in one of the last conversations that I had with this. She looks like a woman. She looks like she fucking just walked out of Vogue magazine, but she's a girl. So, anyways, I'm with Off Sound Man, and he just had his new girlfriend move in with him, but he went through the same thing that I went through. I said, "You know what? Our last conversation," she said, "You're my boss and you're my friend." And he started laughing. He said, "Yeah, you know what that means? That means that you can invite her to eat ice cream cones up in Griffith Park."
Right.
And that's all that amounts to.
Yeah. That's weird.
And
that's a weird statement to make to somebody you've been in a relationship with for 6 months. You're my boss and you're my friend. It's just like a weird.
No,
I don't get that. Like,
no. It's when the end of the relationship comes up and she comes to you and she says, "Can we be friends? Can we still be friends?" Yeah, I'm gonna just I'm going to drop everything else in my life so we can be friends because it's so special. It's so nice and so special. Yeah, okay. Let's hold hands and look at the squirrels in the park while we're eating ice cream cones.
You're not holding hands with your friends, but you can look at the squirrels in the park while you're eating ice cream cones. No hand holding though, bro. Man. But what's your script about? Like you got 25 scripts you were saying. What's the main one though? Like what's
the very last one that I have is in my head about a girl who's
wants to be friends.
No, it's like she's being pressured by her friends she's going through puberty. She's starting to get some hair down there, and in that, she's also with the girls in the school who are like, well, you have to dress like us, you have to be like us. We're all wearing makeup now, even though we're not old enough to wear makeup, or we're just barely old enough to wear makeup. So she's wearing makeup, and she discovers that somebody has swiped some of her makeup, and in doing so, she loses part of. There's a chemical thing going on when you're putting on all of this makeup, you're putting on all of this extra stuff, and she's going through the puberty, and there's some kind of reaction that happens.
Yeah.
And she ends up saving the world from two warring, foreign, faraway armies who are through the movie. They're building up their weaponry, and they're building up. We're going to kill you, and you're going to kill us, and there's going to be this giant battle in our universe. And I can't get into any of the details.
That sounds pretty interesting.
It's a Walt Disney movie.
What's it called?
I have no name for it yet.
Right.
But the first movie that comes up is Watermelon. That's the next one that comes up, and that
that's the album and a movie called Watermelon.
And I'm in 39 scenes out of 45 scenes in the movie. So it's basically about me, and it's like, I don't want to go there. We're a band. Why can't we just like everybody be in this and have, if there's 45 scenes, why can't each guy have 10 scenes of his own? And that's not the way that it works.
Where'd you get the name Watermelon?
We have a scene where I go to the penis doctor because I'm a diabetic and I'm suffering
erectile dysfunction.
Erectile dysfunction.
Let me do a side note real quick. Do you know erectile dysfunction was made up by an ad agency? Once they had Viagra, which was a blood pressure medicine, and they realized that it was good for doing what it does.
Okay, well then, Mr. Joseph Arthur, I can't get an erection. I can't achieve an erection.
But do you watch porn?
Occasionally, because that's what it's for.
You got to stop watching porn full on, and no fap. And I bet you the erections will come back after about a month of that. If you
I don't suffer that. I only suffered that in the very beginning of my diabetes.
Yeah.
Until I wrangled in and started using insulin and correcting my diet, and it came back.
Right.
I can rage.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
Totally. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean, dude. And if you knock out porn and don't fap, that stuff. Like listen, I'm 47, and since I do no fap and don't ever watch porn, I still have morning wood. It's crazy. I might as well, it's like nuts.
What, are you trying to avoid it?
No, but I'm just saying, like,
Jesus Christ, man.
But before I stopped watching porn and all that stuff.
Let's stand at attention, man.
That stuff goes away. Like, you get older and you think, oh, I'm just older, but it's not like that. Anyway.
There's so many things you can do if you don't have an erection. There are just so many pleasantries and niceties and yeah.
So what the Watermelon title come from? So you're going to the
I go
doctor,
I go to the brain clinic, and we have David Yao from the Jesus Lizard.
Oh man, I
love
them. Yeah.
He plays the penis doctor.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he actually is a great
He's cool.
actor.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
Have you?
I've never met him, but
You need to watch his reel. His reel is fucking unbelievable.
fucking love the Jesus Lizard.
And he and I, we're, it's like we're brothers. We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I can.
So
see
he
that.
plays the penis doctor. He's got about 10 scenes in the movie. He's got more scenes. He's second in line in scenes in the movie, and it couldn't be a better character for him.
That's great.
Yeah. So I'm sitting across the desk from him, explaining what my situation is. I've fallen in love with this beautiful girl that I met up in Portland or San Francisco, and she came down here to visit me, and we're trying to have sex, and I can't get an erection, and I'm like feeling really bummed and low and depressed. She said, We'll do this again. You'll get it together. It's no big deal. We still like each other and love each other, or whatever it is. And I'm sitting across from him, and I'm like, I need a cure. I need a cure immediately.
Right.
I need to get with her. I can't let her go. She's really special.
The one,
yeah. And he said, well, here, try this. And he places a glass of watermelon juice in front of me. It just comes out of nowhere. There's a glass of watermelon juice sitting in front of me on the desk. And I don't know if you've ever drank watermelon juice.
Fuck yeah, I have.
It's fucking one of the
it's
greatest
delicious.
things anybody's ever.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
That was back before ketosis, but yeah,
So
I remember it well.
I drink the watermelon juice. And he kind of says, stand back because some shit's going to happen. Of course, he says it in more of a clinical way. But I am able to travel through dimensions.
Wow.
I'm able to levitate. I'm able to just like fly through the sky. They're like just... I'm a bird. I'm going to where I need to go.
What was it about the watermelon juice?
The watermelon juice is it will be revealed later in the movie why this watermelon juice is so special.
So it wasn't your
no spoilers.
No spoiler alert. It's not your typical watermelon juice.
The people who raised and grew the watermelons are a special group of people.
I see. They put spiritual energy into it.
Yes, very, very much so. Because now all of a sudden, this band that's broken up, we've been broken up for about a year.
Right.
It's like I got to get the band back together. I miss playing with those guys because we're such a great band. We know that we're really good. I got to get the band back together.
Yeah.
So I call a band meeting. And it's like, guys, look. We can argue and we can fight and we can just be hating each other. But here, sip this. And one of the guys in the band is, I'll try anything, sure. And he drinks it and he goes off and it turns into
it's
like
almost like psychedelic drugs almost.
Yes.
There's an aspect.
But it gives each one of us the power to like, we have telepathy, we're all on the same length, and now we're like the good guys in the universe and we got to go fight evil characters.
Yeah.
And the guy that I'm going to fight with is Gibby from the Butthole Surfers.
That's cool. He lived in Red Hook when I lived in Red Hook, Brooklyn. So he's in the movie.
And you know what? He might still live there.
I think he still does. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know him, but I see him in the neighborhood.
He married a woman that became a circuit judge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, anyways, each one of us has our own power, and one of the scenes I think that the most genius scene in the movie involves our drummer.
This sounds genius.
Yeah, our drummer who skated for Tony Alva has a scene where he's at the skate park, and I'm not going to go into any of the details, but it's the end result is fucking like something out of a trauma movie.
Yeah.
Or the lyric that comes to mind is yellow mellow custard, dripping from a dead dog's eye.
Wow.
It's like, because there's going to be special effects.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's your superpower?
My superpower, I end up fighting Gibby. And he's what would be called an evildoer. All of these people that we fight with, they're all evildoers.
Right.
We talked about chemtrails.
Yeah.
My scene in the movie when I fight with Gibby has to do with chemtrails.
Wow.
Each thing that we're dealing with because the soundtrack is based on all of these conspiracy theories. We went in deep. It was just like, what the
love
fuck?
that.
It's like I can't watch any more of this. I can't delve into this any further. It's just so ugly. It's so negative. It's like we're never climbing out of this.
Right.
So each guy has his own superpower.
But what's your superpower?
My superpower is, I think Gibby tries to kill me with laser beams that shoot out of his eyes. And my superpower basically is that I've been able to levitate and end up in the cockpit in the main area of the jet. And in the jet, if you do Google or go to any of these research sites, you will see actual photos of how they've removed, how these people that are doing all of the spraying have removed all of the seats out of the sitting area and replaced them with these giant tubs of all of the stuff that they're dumping on us from up there. So I get in a fight with Gibby, and it's all good.
It sounds good. Yeah.
There's a in one of the scenes there will be a golden base sitting in the bottom of a swimming pool, and our bass player is somehow going to make the bass rise up out of the pool, and he's going to start playing it. And we wanted to get Flea for this scene.
Yeah. That's a good idea. You have such a visual imagination, man. Hearing you talk about these ideas is like, or any of the ideas you've talked about in this whole podcast, it's like the visuals that you produce is really astounding.
Well, visually,
so I appreciate it.
Visually speaking, the movie that I'm doing a rewrite right now. I told you that my friend Sean, the waiter here, has written a script. He's written it twice. The first time he wrote it about Off, I said, no, not about Off. Off is never... the only bummer that Off has ever presented to me is just the guys in the band are such great players. When you're playing with people of this stature, they're all going to be playing in 6 or 10 other bands, and there's no way of getting around that. So that creates scheduling problems, and that's kind of depressing. And it's kind of a bummer, but it's just like, pull the rug out from me. I'm going to fall on my face. I'm going to see the stars. I'm going to hear these little chirping birds. And I'm going to hear all of the bells. And the helicopter, the emergency flight path helicopter to the children's hospital is going to fly over and bring me out of all of this. And I will know that when it's my turn, when it's my time, when it's our turn, when it's our time, we are going to kick some serious fucking ass. This isn't about just showing up and goofing off.
No, you keep kicking ass. That's one thing I like about you.
The movie that I've had in my head since 2003 has just recently found a script. Now, it's my job to go to the script because Sean wrote in Off as the band in the movie, and it's the Circle Jerks. And it's my opportunity to, like, people are going to go, he's fucking mean. Why would Keith want to use John Herder, who is Napoleon Dynamite, as Xander Schloss, who is the bass player?
It's so fucking funny. Lanigan was telling us exactly this about the guy, because what was that movie that you guys were both in?
Repo Man.
Repo Man, and that's what they based Napoleon Dynamite off of, his character in Repo Man, right?
Pretty much so.
Yeah.
I'm feeling 7-Up. And then Otto just hauls off and fucking doesn't slap him or punch him. He just pushes them into this giant display of, I guess it's 7-Up cans or whatever. So anyways, in my movie is based on, like, the guy that I explained to you just now about being in a relationship, like a nowhere relationship for 6 months. You fucking loser. What are you doing? What are you thinking?
Right.
You're smarter than it. You idiot.
Yeah, but if you want something, you want it. The heart wants what the heart wants.
That's true.
And you have to follow the dream.
What happens with me, and and we talked about me working at V2 Records, being the A&R boy, just being the lowest man on the totem pole. This happens when I start working at V2, where I'm working what basically is it's just a job. It's just something for me to do. It's just the benefits, the $1,500 a month insurance policy with the company made it all worthwhile.
Right.
What happens is kind of the same thing that happens in Watermelon, and that is I'm dealing with guys who are just too busy and too important and just too cool to get in a room to rehearse. You know, and I go to a rehearsal and it's like everybody's standing around on their cell phones.
Right.
Too involved in what's in the palm of their hand rather than like
being present.
Yes, like let's play some music. We're here. Let's crank. You know, I need to put in the earplugs and let's fucking blow this place up. It's like, well, I got to go because my dog developed hemorrhoids, or my dog needs to see this dog psychologist.
That's always a dog.
But he's making progress.
Ehud almost didn't come on this trip because of a dog. It's true.
How's your hearing after 40-some years?
Oh,
by the way?
I'm ringing right now. I've got two wasps, just two giant. If they're not wasps, they're bees.
Tinnitus.
And you take the bees, which I don't think are as loud as wasps, and you turn the volume up on them like a couple more notches.
That's what you got?
Yeah.
Does it bug you, or do you meditate out of it? Or?
No, I don't meditate, but it's like sometimes it's unavoidable, and sometimes it's just like, well, I ordered it.
Yeah.
You know, I went to all of these concerts. You know, I saw Black Sabbath at the Whiskey A Go-Go and on the Master of Reality tour, and it was so loud when I left, I didn't know. My head was just buzzing so hard. It was like I didn't even know where I was at. You know, you do that. You play loud, amplified music. The trick is, and you can never bust this trick out on any of the guys because the guitar player has to be louder than the bass player and the drums, or the drummer has to hit that snare so hard and so loud that it like cuts through. You know, and you have the ring, the constant ringing of the cymbals. So you have this competition. We're never going to get in a room where it's like you could speak like this over the music, guy. That bass line, you might want to like try reversing one of the notes, or stop, count a couple of times in your head, and start back up. It's never anything like that. It's always this competition. So yes, my ears are ringing like motherfuckers. I've been in the war zone.
With a white noise machine on and in your bedroom or anything like that?
No, because when I conk out, conk out for 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
I'm out. It doesn't matter what's going on around me.
Do you dream vividly or remember your dreams?
I can't even remember the last time I had any kind of a dream.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned Flea before. Is it true? I read somewhere that you once filled in for Anthony Kiedis.
Not only did I fill in for Anthony, he had got busted jaywalking. That's the story that we tell everybody. But Anthony would eventually step up and say, "No, I was fucking in a knot on my drug dealer's couch." This is like 3 hours before the biggest show they're ever going to play. This was at the Olympic Auditorium. There were going to be like 4,000 people at this show. It was Suicidal Tendencies and the Minutemen and SSD Control from Boston. There were going to be like 4,000 people there. Depending upon Suicidal Tendencies' popularity, there could have been 5,000 people there. This is the biggest show that the Red Hot Chili Peppers are going to play up to that point. I mean, now that 5,000 people to them is like, you know, they'll sell that many tickets even before the tickets go on sale.
Right.
It's an amazing place. It's the Olympic Auditorium. And I happened to run into a friend in the parking lot. I'm just hanging out in the parking lot earlier in the evening. And she said, Keith, you want a bump? Oh, hell yeah, I'll take a bump.
Right.
Oh, hell fucking yeah. Here. I get going, and I'm going.
What's the most days you stayed up in a row?
I did about 7 in a row.
I think I've done about that many.
And that was
definitely 5.
That was when I hit the wall.
Yeah.
That was when I hit the wall and I got in a fight with a girlfriend up in a party in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
In the morning. I'm in my underwear. I'd been floating in the swimming pool on some kind of flotation device, totally nude. And when I woke up, I was like sunburned.
Wow.
And I'm like, where are my clothes? How did I get like this?
Right.
And it got ugly. And that was my bottom. I hit a bottom because I did something that I don't normally do. I'm not a big guy. I weigh 135 pounds.
Right.
I don't get to be the bully guy or the guy that lifts weights that goes around pushing people around or being Mr. Tough Guy.
Right.
I don't get to be the guy that's got 60 tattoos showing them off like, don't fuck with me. I'm, this is where I'm from. This is what I do. I'm not that guy.
Right.
I'm a pacifist.
Yeah.
And you don't piss off a pacifist, because when you do piss off a pacifist,
They go nuclear.
It gets ugly. Yeah.
Never trust a hippie.
Things get broken. I don't consider myself to be a hippie,
I
just
know.
like I don't consider myself to be a punk rock, because all of these labels,
I know, I was just
they're all
joking.
swell and wonderful, and they're beautiful, and they have their time and place.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're just members
People.
of the human race.
Yeah.
We're
one. We're all
not,
one.
We're not Republicans. We're not Democrats. We're not voting for Jill Stein. We're not looking for jewels and
The
precious
media
stones
is trying to create divides and keep people all outraged all the time. But so you got a bump, and then you're about to go sing.
That bump turned into about $600 worth of bumps.
Yeah, of course.
And when 15
And then the next day happened.
15 minutes before they were supposed to play, all of the people in their little tribe are just pacing back and forth. Where's Anthony? Where's Anthony? It's like, well, if you say Anthony Kiedis like 30, you repeat it 30 times.
He appears.
There's going to be a big puff of smoke, and there he is, and he's ready to fucking go out there and kill the world. He's not showing up. They don't know that. He never bothered to call anybody and said, maybe you need to cancel. So Flea comes to me and says, Keith, can you get up there and jump around and scream and yell some of the lyrics?
That's crazy.
And
Did you know the lyrics?
I knew absolutely not one word out of any of their lyrics.
I'm a fan of them. I know a lot of people don't think they're cool or whatever, but I actually fucking love the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
They earned everything.
Personally speaking, I fucking love them, and I love his voice too. People sometimes diss that, but I think he's got a great voice.
They earned everything they've got because they went out
agree.
and they
they're
did
original.
the work.
And they're original. Nobody sounds like them.
So what did you tell Flea?
Well, I did it. How could I not? I was jamming on $600 worth of cocaine.
Coke. Dude, that's like... Yeah.
How did the gig go?
And he said...
Did a full gig? Full gig?
And he said, look, there's 2 cases of Budweiser.
Right.
It's like, that's my reward. I'm getting up there and just doing whatever I can do.
And you're on that much gack that Budweiser's not going to do anything except for keep your whistle wet.
That
it's not going to do shit.
Make you want to go to the bathroom every 15 minutes.
It's it's not going to even touch you.
So how long did you sing for?
Their entire set. And I think my rap was, what you see is what you get.
Really?
And that was it.
And you just kept doing that over and over again?
What happened was...
what you see is what you get. Right? There's another good song.
Well, here's the thing. Because Flea knew that he was going to need to step up and cover lyrics.
Right.
And I think Jack Shermdog, who was the guitar player at the time, he actually had a mic in front of him.
Fair play to them for going on with the gig. That's crazy. And fair play to you for doing it. But then again, you had that cocaine confidence.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
I could have remained in the parking lot and parked everybody's cars for them.
Yeah.
I gotta ask a follow-up. How do 4,000 fans take that? Like,
who
they
cares?
didn't ever.
Dude, when you're on $600 worth
You
of
don't give a
cocaine, you
fuck.
don't even. You're not. That's not even a consideration.
I bet you they liked it anyway. I mean,
It was fun,
I'm sure it was fun.
and I was just higher than a kite, and there was no way they were gonna grab that little tiny little rope or whatever, the string that's gonna bring me back down.
Right. And now you've been sober for like what, 25 years
I've
or
been
something like
sober
that?
since 1988.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
and I don't look back. I mean, I look at some of the situations
Yeah.
and go, how did I get there, and why did I go there? But I don't dwell upon it.
No, why would you?
No, because it's like once you
That was a long time
you
ago
turn
anyway.
that corner. I mean, I've done a few things like you smoked with Joe Strummer.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well,
see,
I've relapsed. I'm only 3 years sober now, like a little bit over 3. but I relapsed a bunch. So.
My mushroom experience was amazing,
Yeah.
and after a couple of days on mushrooms, that was enough. I don't need to go back there. I
Right.
mean, it was pleasant and it was wonderful and all of it was good. I don't need to go back
Yeah.
there.
I mean, psychedelics are more medicinal than
Then
those
I did
destructive
I did
cocaine-ish drugs.
the
you know? I mean,
hashish.
right.
And that certainly, because one of my favorite things out of all of it
Right.
was hashish. We would get
Yeah.
this opiated, like this white. We would get these slabs of. They look like tiles of black. We called it
Black
gurmo.
tar.
We called it no, not black tar. Black
No.
tar is a whole different thing.
Yeah, yeah, I don't mean that, but like it looks like black.
We would get this dark brown, these tiles that had these little streaks of opium in them,
Oh,
and it was the greatest high that I've ever had.
right.
But you know, I smoked a ton of pot, and it was just like, hey, you know, it's all good. I don't need to go back there. I'm in a different place,
Yeah.
and I don't need to be bothered with it.
How do you maintain it? Do you go to meetings or anything like that?
I don't go to meetings.
I don't really go that much either.
I will
Here and there.
occasionally,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm not mad at it, but-
every 6 years I'll go to a meeting to present a friend with a cake or whatever.
Right.
And
Why don't you go? Do you think it's destructive on some level? Or?
no, I don't
Just
need
don't
to hear
need
the
it.
stories. I don't
Yeah.
need it. I
Yeah.
know where I'm at, and I know
Right.
where I'm going,
Yeah.
and I know that I'm not going to never ever get bogged down in any of that stuff.
Right. Me neither, man. It's too much of a waste of time.
My life is so much. I mean, I was doing all of that stuff when I was younger, and it was all fun, and it was
Yeah.
all great, and it all worked out however it worked out.
Right.
I wrecked cars. As you notice, you can see that I'm missing a front tooth that I lost because my friends at the time didn't have the wherewithal to grab me out of the back of the car and take me up the stairs and just put me on the floor. Just here's a pillow, sleep on the floor, sleep this off. What they did was they took me out of the back of the car and put me behind the wheel of the car. Like, what the fuck are you guys thinking? I was barely, I couldn't even talk. I was like gurgling and burbling and
People
like
are wild.
well, it wasn't even wild. It was just the whole situation was just beyond stupid. Like, you
Yeah.
guys are my best friends, and this is what you did to me.
Right.
I drove off in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I ended up on Manhattan Beach Boulevard, in Manhattan Beach, hitting a parked car in a driveway that's like with the emergency brake on. I hit that car so hard and so fast that I drove it through the driveway, through the garage, and into the guy's living room. And I
That's
rolled
crazy.
I rolled back out onto the street thinking, you know what, I'm going to drive away and nobody will know that this happened. And
Nobody got hurt though.
I got hurt.
You got hurt.
I got hurt. My old man disliked me so much at that time he was going to punch me in the face. He said, I'm going to end your life. I'm going to just punch you right now. Because my dad was a badass. Of course he didn't. I mean, he hovered over me and he was breathing down my neck. He was breathing fire, like, how fucking dare you? That was a brand new car, you know, and you just wrecked it. When I rolled back out onto Manhattan Beach Boulevard and I tried to drive away, it was not going anywhere. It wasn't even, it just barely rolled in reverse out of the driveway.
And the cops came? Or
the
what?
cops came. They take
you
the
in?
engine, whatever was left of the engine, was like sitting next to me in the front seat.
Yeah. That's crazy. What'd the guy say that the house got blown out?
I never talked to him because
Right.
I was at an age where the only thing that I was charged
Juvie.
with was reckless driving.
Wow.
And the insurance company
That's all
had
they do, don't it?
the insurance company had to pay up a big chunk.
Yeah.
You know, to replace the garage door and the back wall and the garage and the front wall of the living room and whatever debris was spewed about in the living room. You know, if I broke the sofa or the TV or what have you, I don't know. I never went back.
Right. And you grew up in this neighborhood, huh? Like
I was born 2 blocks from here.
And you've lived here all your life? Or?
No, I've lived out in the desert.
Oh, right.
I lived
Joshua
out,
Tree?
I lived in Palm Desert,
Uh-huh.
which is right next to Joshua Tree.
That's where we're headed. That's where we're about to go.
Yeah, you're going to have a great time. It's beautiful out
Yeah.
there. I lived in Las Vegas, another desert, just
Yeah.
another trash heap piled on a desert somewhere. I've lived in Mount Holly, North Carolina, which is 20 miles west of Charlotte. I lived in Richmond, Virginia, another like really beautiful cities.
What brought you to those cities?
Well, I went to North Carolina because my sister lived in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And I'd found myself in a situation where I was going to move to Edmonton, Canada, one of the flattest places in
Why?
the world and coldest, because I was in love with a Ukrainian Canadian.
Another Black Widow type of situation?
No, not so far from it. No.
Oh, really?
No, just a really beautiful human being.
Nice person?
Yes, very, very, very nice.
That's cool.
So I was going to move there. I got there in the airport. The Canadian TSA said, well, where are you going? We need to talk to you. And they put me in a room for about 3 hours, and they were grilling me. And it was one of the questions that came up was, how much money do you have in your bank account? And at that time, I had about $7,000, which would have probably held me over if I was living with somebody and the rent was...
For 32 years.
No, in Canadian years,
In
yes.
Canadian years. 32 Canadian years. You'd have been fine, bro.
Well, one of the other questions was, and what do you plan? Why are you here? And I said, well, I'm moving here because I want to live with my current girlfriend. And then it got to, well, what are you going to do for work? What are your plans for work? And
I'm going to make jams.
all of these, I wasn't going there to play music.
Right.
I mean, if it happened, it happened. You know, just let it roll out however it rolls out, and let the world flow the way it's supposed to flow. I told them, I have no idea. I'm just going to have to look for work.
That was the wrong answer.
You don't. All of these answers were next or wrong or
Right.
like a true and false.
Yeah.
False.
Yeah.
And they said, well, here's what the situation is. We're going to let you leave the airport, but you're going to be back here for the first flight that goes back to Los Angeles. We're putting you on the first flight back to Los Angeles,
Damn.
which was at, I want to say it was 8 o'clock in the morning.
That sucks. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't even give you a visitor pass or anything?
I got to go with her to where she was living, and we got to hang out for about 3 hours.
That's
and then it was back
crazy.
in the van and back to the airport. And it was beautiful. It was a wonderful experience. I will say that was probably the most expensive lay that I've ever had.
Right.
But it was totally worth it. I mean, it was just, one of those things. And it actually, there's certain things that happen to you in your world that there's a detour, or you make a right turn instead of a left turn. And you make that turn, and all of a sudden you're finding out you did the right thing. You made the right move. You didn't even have to look on the map. It just got explained to you. It was like, I was not supposed to be there.
Right.
And I was glad, because Edmonton is Wayne Gretzky played for the Oilers, and that's the biggest thing that they have there.
That's so funny with that concept of things getting explained to you. I like that. I like the way you phrased that. That would be another good idea for a song, of like things getting explained to you by the universe. Like that just happened to me last night.
Is this part of my spirituality?
I don't know.
Because I would love to brag about my spirituality. See, I get questions like, you ask me about the going to the meetings, and I never, ever, never, ever bought into the God is looking down on you, or God is smiling on you.
You don't pray or anything like that?
None of that. Hell no. None of that. None of that shit.
You don't believe in
fucking
any
works.
kind of creator?
I don't think so.
You think something comes from nothing?
I think my parents created me, and I think
Well,
my grandparents
who
created them. Well, you got to go back to the guy and the gal at the tree with the snake and the apple. I guess that's where you go back to. I mean, that's what they say. Well, anyways, I'm not going to.
You're more of a Big Bang kind of guy?
Not. My thing is, I really dislike all of these people that say, well, you're going to heaven, or you're going to hell.
Well, that's not, but that's whatever that is. That's like some other concept.
This
like,
is what it is.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on that.
No,
like
I'm not throwing.
You know what I mean?
I'm not throwing no baby out. I'm just going to explain it.
That's the bathwater.
While we are living.
Yeah.
Walking and breathing and doing what we're doing,
right.
We have really horrible experiences, and we have really great experiences. I firmly believe that while we are on Earth, we experience heaven and hell.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I believe that too. But I do pray, because I feel like I need prayer, to help me just get through the days. I also, that's how I sort of frame up my life, that I'm on
Isn't that part of your meditation? Isn't that part?
I guess. I don't know, but I'm not dogmatic about anything or religious or anything like that. But I've always prayed since I was a kid, and believe in something. I do believe something is kind of like paying attention, like a benevolent spirit is paying attention to things. But
the first time,
it could be wrong. I'm not like.
The first time I ever experienced the word nigger. Was from my Southern Baptist relatives.
Right.
I'm a hillbilly Jew, and I know where my people come from, and I know what they did once they got here. Some of my people, sadly, are responsible for NASCAR, which is one of the worst things ever created.
Why is that?
You can just sit around and watch cars go around on a track, like who's faster than who, and we've got this new Superpower ethanol, what have you, fuel for, it makes our rocket
Isn't it
engines.
just another sport, though?
Yeah, but you look at it, it's like golf. It's white.
Is it?
It's golf is an elitist sport. You got to be a member of the country club, and you got to hang out with a bunch of fucking boring ass fucking 1%ers.
Yeah, but Tiger Woods is like a really good golfer, and he's black.
No, he's not.
Well, he sort of is, right?
No, he's
at least halfway.
No, he's not even halfway. He just did. He's going to build a golf course with Donald Trump. It does not get any more white than that.
Right. Well, what about boxing? You like boxing?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
I like the ultra mega let it go, do whatever you can do to defeat your opponent in the closed off cage.
Oh, you like that MMA?
I do on occasion.
I do too, here and there, but I prefer boxing.
I prefer living here in Los Angeles. Some of us bleed blue because we're Dodgers.
The Blue Bloods?
And we've watched the Dodgers have some really pathetic, mediocre years, and now they're tearing it up. And they got all of these young guys. They're studs. They're like, fuck you, get out of our way.
Do you go to Dodgers games?
I don't, because it's so expensive.
My friend Greg Dooley goes.
Greg has a bar that some of the Dodgers hang out in.
Yeah.
But the thing with the game at Dodger Stadium is I've been to enough games. I don't need to spend $30 to park in the parking lot.
Right.
I don't need to spend another $45, $50 on a couple of Dodger dogs and a couple of orders of garlic fries and a couple of extra tall iced teas or 2 or 3 bottles of water and then a bag of peanuts and then some ice cream or what have you. It's just, it's too expensive.
Yeah, don't eat ice cream. We've already gone over that.
I love ice cream, and you know what I'll do with the ice cream? I'll give myself an extra couple of bumps. And it's a rarity.
Yeah.
You know, you got to treat yourself every now and then, and you can't get all guilty and worked up over, you know, it's one of the first things they told me in my diabetes training.
Mm-hmm.
The nurse steps up and she said, okay, so I'm going to ask you all a question. What is the main cause of diabetes?
Yeah.
And me being the fucking brilliant rocket scientist genius that I am, said sugar.
Right.
And she said, oh, that's so far from the truth. The number one answer that we're looking for is stress. And
but sugar causes stress because it causes inflammation, and so it's like circular. And sugar is addictive. You could also say like, oh yeah, you got to treat yourself every once in a while, but somebody could say that too about drugs and alcohol. And with drugs and alcohol, you have to be like, nah, fuck that. I'm never going to do that shit. Because,
not everybody.
Because also sugar is like works addictively too. Like if you like eliminate it, you stop craving it. If you like take it, then you crave it. But I don't mean to be like
Dr.
a bore.
Arthur.
I know, I'm a bore. Talking to the punk rock legend of all time, and I'm being like this guy.
Oh, no. Please do not lump me up there. There are other more important people.
You're pretty important.
Well, I thank you for that compliment.
You're very important, man.
And I need to eat some of this fruit. This fruit is awesome.
It looks awesome. I'm still at the point where I still crave sugar. What were you about to say?
Well, speaking of punk rock and not putting you in anything, as far as your progression, where you were in Black Flag, and then you left Black Flag, and then Circle Jerks, and then Circle Jerks ended, and now Off, you still perform as Flag. Like, when did you make that decision to like, okay, fuck this, I'm still going to do Flag shows?
Well, the thing with Flag is it's really special because all of the guys that are part of Flag, they're all really insanely
so good
bitchin' fucking human beings.
Oh, and great musicians.
I've known Billy since he was 8 years old. Billy used to come into my dad's fishing tackle store, and he would stand in the middle of the floor while he was shopping, looking around. I would have music blasting out of the little radio above the refrigerator. At one point when he was about 11 or 12, maybe 13, he said, Keith, what are we listening to? And it could have been Mata Hoople, it could have been David Bowie, it could have been Alice Cooper, it could have been Ted Nugent, it could have been Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep. It just depended upon the radio station that I was listening to. I like all of this music. Can you recommend any music for me to listen to?
That's cute.
I said, Billy, I like Aerosmith. I love Cheap Trick. Blue Oyster Cult. I rattled off a bunch of just truly amazingly great bands on whatever levels they were of greatness they achieved. He certainly took Cheap Trick to heart, because there would be no Descendants if Billy hadn't listened to Cheap Trick. And then We had a local band who was
cute.
out of all of the bands that were in the South Bay. All of them being top 40 bands. Occasionally there would be a band that stepped up that was an original band. We had a band called The Last, who were basically, we loved them for their energy. They had a punk rock energy, and they were not a punk rock band. They were so far from it.
The Last or The Laughs?
The Last.
The Last.
They did a really cool version of Bebop-A-Lula. They have an amazing song called She Don't Know Why I'm Here, it's got a punk rock kind of vibe to it. But they were basically a pop band that played some rockabilly and had the energy of a punk band. The Descendants certainly wouldn't exist if it wasn't for The Last. They were also a big influence on Black Flag. Getting back to all of the guys in Black Flag, who are some of the most amazing people you're going to meet, they're all just, when we get together, it's really special. There's a certain vibe that's happening. It's not a competition. We're getting together because we love these songs. We played these songs. We live these songs. We were a part of these songs. Granted, we didn't write all of the songs. We wrote some of the lyrics. Some of the songs we play were written by Chuck Dukowski, who was the main reason I quit the band when I did.
Why?
Because
He's the bass player, right?
Chuck Dukowski, who is the heart and soul of Black Flag, not the mastermind. That would be Greg Ginn.
Right.
Greg Ginn is a genius guitar player, but sadly, he's just such a horrible human being. Nobody wants to be around him. Chuck, when he became he was the fourth bass player in Black Flag. I was in Black Flag for 3 years. In 3 years, we went through 4 bass players. We went through 2 drummers. You know, that's enough lineup changes to last some people for their entire lives. We went through that in 3 years. Chuck became the bass player. Our work ethic completely changed. It's like, now we're going to learn these songs. You know how we're going to learn these songs? We're going to also learn some new songs. You know how we're going to learn them? We're going to get in a room and we're going to rehearse every night for a minimum 4 to 5 hours.
Right.
No bullshit, no
You didn't want to do that?
lollygagging.
Or did you?
No, in the beginning it was like, hell yeah,
Right.
this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I would get up at 6 in the morning. I would get off of work at 9 o'clock at night, and I would walk up. I would walk up to the church, which was like 2 Beatles songs away from where I worked. And we would get in that room, and we would.
The church was like a rehearsal space, or
Well, the church
was it a real church?
It was a real church that
Okay.
had the church people abandoned it.
So the bands would rehearse there.
There were 2 or 3 bands that rehearsed there. Red Cross was being
Right.
one of them.
Yeah.
So we started on this rehearsal regiment that was just beyond ridiculous. And we're rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing some more, and it's like, well, when are we going to play? And it's like none of us knew how to like go to the club owner and say, hey, you have an opening slot on Monday night? Could we come and play Monday night? You don't have to pay us. We'll play for a couple of 6-packs. That was how it was in the beginning. No gigs. We played parties. We played a 8th grade graduation party where the one girl drank 2 pots of coffee and was out of her mind, and they had to walk her around, and they were pouring water down her throat, and that was like the big event. We played. The kids in the living room just couldn't believe what was going on. Like, what is this?
That must have been mind-blowing.
It was.
Nobody had seen anything like that.
It was ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Those kids were it looked like,
dude.
It looked like looked like the city of Tokyo fucking evacuating when Godzilla was going to fight Mothra.
Oh my god.
But we all went our separate ways.
Yeah.
And then there was an opportunity to play a big 3-day anniversary party down at the Santa Monica Civic, which is one of my favorite in all of Los Angeles. It's one of my favorite venues. It's hit or miss sound wise, but I saw so many fucking great concerts in that room. I saw Rory Gallagher. I saw Queen. I saw Queen with Nazareth. I saw David Bowie and the Spiders from Mars in 1972, and it was like, this is some of the greatest shit I've ever seen. I saw Golden Earring when Caesar the drummer, this was the tour where he was leaping off of his drum stool from behind the drum kit, flying 60 feet through the air, and landing on the tip of the stage. Mm-hmm. I saw Little Feat, Electric Light Orchestra, Roy Wood's Wizard. I saw the Pretty Things. Oh, geez. I saw Robin Trower. Mm-hmm. It was just...
I've seen Robin Trower before.
The first...
Jimi Hendrix-esque.
Well, he got a couple of lessons from Jimi Hendrix. That's why he went from a Les Paul to a Stratocaster. Yeah. That was how much influence Jimi Hendrix had on him. Mm-hmm. Great guitar player.
Great guitar player. The wah-wah.
I was going to say, saw GBH there. Circle Jerks played with GBH. Buzz Cox. I saw the Erg Wars with the Cramps and the Alley Cats and the Dead Kennedys and Magazine and Pere Ubu.
From Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
That's where I'm from. Akron.
So do you know Cheetah Chrome?
No.
There was a Circle Jerks, our first East Coast tour. We played at the Mud Club in New York. There was nobody there. The room was completely, it was void. It was like somebody came in there and just
the wait staff.
Painted the whole thing black. They just blacked everything out, except for the wait staff.
Right.
And the one guy that was running around completely out of his mind. He'd stacked all of the furniture, all of the bar stools, all of the tables to the side of the stage, in front of the stage, and gleefully looked like he was going to just set it all on fire. Mm-hmm. What he would do is he would walk to the back of the room, and then he would run across the room, and he would run up and leap off of all of this furniture piled on the stage. And I'm surprised because he didn't land on the drums, but he always managed, he did this like 2 or 3 times, he managed to land on a certain part of the stage where he could stand in front of the bass cabinet and turn all of the knobs all the way to the right. Mm-hmm. He did the same thing on the opposite side of the stage with the guitar cabinet and did the same thing. And one of the guys looked at me and said, "You need to tell him that he needs to stop. He can't do that." And I started laughing. It was like they're getting ready to start up a song and they're jamming, and I'm looking at them and I'm laughing so hard I can't even sing the lyrics. When they're through with the song, I said, "You don't fucking tell Cheetah Chrome not to do what Cheetah Chrome wants to do." The Santa Monica Civic scenario is that we get invited to participate in a 3-night event that included Social Distortion, X, Dickies, Vandals, TSOL, just like 30 bands over the 3 nights. And Gary Tovar, who is responsible for one of the greatest concert promotion companies, Golden Voice, had reached out to Chuck and said, "Chuck, I need you to come out on stage and give a speech to all of these punk rocks. You would be really good at that." And Chuck said, "Gary, give me a few minutes to think about this and I'll call you back." In the few minutes, Gary decided he's not giving a speech. He's going to figure out a way to have a Black Flag reunion on stage. Of course, his mind starts working overtime, and he figures it's going to turn into this cavalcade where Henry Rollins is going to come out, and he's going to sing 5 songs. Ron Reyes is going to come out. We're going to fly Ron Reyes down from Vancouver. We're going to fly Dezo out from New Jersey. and it turned into this big ultra mega production that it didn't have to be, or it wasn't going to be.
Nobody wanted.
Well, he reached out to Billy, knowing that the Descendants were headlining, and said, Billy, could we get together? You play drums. Can we get together and could we play some Black Flag songs? And Billy immediately said, yes, let's do this. As it turns out, the guitar player in the Descendants, Stefan, grew up. The first record that he learned to play guitar to was Nervous Breakdown. So that's his punk rock training. So he knows those songs. It's like, guys, let's sort this out. Let's figure out what's going on. Chuck got back to Gary and said, we're going to play. I'm not showing up to give a speech. Screw that. We're going to play. And Gary got all excited, and all of a sudden the word went out, in the punk rock underground.
Did they ask you or not yet?
Say what?
Did they ask you or not yet?
I was the first vocalist they asked. See, Chuck wanted all of the guys. He wanted to give up 10 minutes to Kira to come up and play bass. He wanted to turn it into the cavalcade of Black
review.
Flag. Yeah.
Black Flag review.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't going to work because there was no money. You don't fly some guy down from Vancouver. If there's no guarantee, it's like everybody can just put money out of their pocket that they don't have.
But that is going back to the rehearsal thing. That's why you quit the band, because it started being not fun, all that rehearsing and stuff like that, or was that was the reason?
Right.
Yeah.
When Chuck reached out to me, I couldn't refuse.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone through a situation where Golden Voice at one time asked me to participate in 2 nights at the Hollywood Palladium that equates to, if they sell out both nights, it could be 10,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Black Flag, the first 4 years, which I was there for the first 3, so I've got to be there. I mean, I've got to represent the first 3 years. Then the next 6 months was Ron Reyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it was Des Cadena. So there's going to be 3 vocalists there to cover the first 4 years.
Are you friends with Henry Rollins, or do you know him, or are you friendly with him?
Henry and I, at one point, we could talk. We could sit down. We could listen to some music together. We could chit-chat and be bros.
Right.
And it got ugly.
It got ugly?
We went through a lawsuit.
Oh, why?
And I can't get into any of the details because I'm going to get into all of the details when I write my next book.
Oh, okay.
And I signed on the bottom line, the very last thing in the lawsuit for me. I signed on the very last line, and one of the stipulations or one of the terms was, you will not talk about this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever wrote that up can go fuck themselves. They can go pleasure themselves.
In the highway.
If it was one of the guys in that law firm, they can remove their clothes, get fully erect, and stick their heart on in a garbage disposal. The reason I'm angry is I gave up lyrics.
Uh-huh.
I gave up a website that had almost 1 million people on the website to receive royalties that trickle in, like we were talking about Spotify and all of that other stuff. It's just so ridiculously weak. It's like not even worth waiting around for that check for $95 or $150.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up when I signed that signature at the very bottom of that suit, or the finalization of the suit, to receive a minimum $500 for merchandise. See, that was the carrot that was waved in front of my face.
Mm-hmm.
You give up the lyrics, you give up the website, and we'll pay you merch royalties
Yeah.
that equate to There are bootleggers on eBay that are making more than $500 every 3 or 4 months on Black Flag bootleg merch.
Mm-hmm.
At the halfway point of this wonderful lawsuit, Greg Ginn's lawyer got all huffy and puffy and like, you don't fuck with me, I'm going to fucking bite your head off. Stepped up and told our lawyer, we're not even at the halfway point yet, and I'm going to make this cost your clients $500,000.
We tried to bully you.
He would have done it.
Mm.
Our lawyer said, guys, now it's crunch time because I know that you guys on your best days aren't even going to be able to come close to that kind of money. And I can't keep charging you $2,500 an hour.
Damn.
Because this work is going to pile up, and that $500,000 could turn into like $700,000. It could turn into $900,000. That's just how all of this shit fucking works.
Right.
And it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. What did Henry?
Henry was the first one served. Henry had Chuck and I come to his nuclear bomb shelter up in the Hollywood Hills, and we had a conversation where he suggested we go to Spot, we get all of the tapes back, we bake the tapes because the tapes are so old they're going to need to get fixed so they can be
Played.
So they can be played one more time, because that's what happens when you bake the tape. You got like one more spin. We're gonna remix and remaster these songs and bring them up to date because our fans deserve this. And it's like, okay, this is great. I can go along with that. We're going to reach out to Spot. We're going to get all of these tapes. And what we're going to do is we're going to make all of the records gatefold records, whether they were gatefold records or not, because everybody that played a role in that particular recording is going to step up, and they're going to, if they write a paragraph, if they write War and Peace or what have you, we're going to make this appealing, because a record nowadays, a brand new record, is like $50. You know, you got to make it worth everybody's time. So there'll be photos. There'll be all of these anecdotes and all of these stories and paragraphs here, and it was like we were recording and the bartender came and knocked on the front door and said, you guys are playing too loud, you're making it too loud downstairs, and my patrons, all of the bartenders and everybody's complaining, and you're making all of this noise, and just ridiculous stuff like that. Henry suggested this. I said, we need to get the marks. Let's check in on the marks. The marks being the 4 bars, and the second mark being the name Black Flag. My lawyer handled it, and he couldn't believe how quickly these people got back to us, because this is a process. Sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 years to get an answer from these people. It takes that long. They got back to us, it was like 3 months. It was like, are you kidding? Our eyes started spinning. They said, we're giving you the mark for the 4 bars. We can't give you the mark for Black Flag because it's owned by a Japanese clothing company. So what had happened was, Ginn, in his ego or arrogance, or nobody can mess with me, I'm SST, I'm Black Flag, I'm this and that, apparently just crossed his arms, folded his arms, and said, nobody's going to bother taking any of that away from me. I'll have my lawyer crush them.
Right.
I'll have my lawyer make it cost $500,000 at the halfway point.
So he lost the name.
He lost the name. We got the 4 bars,
That's
so
interesting.
we had that. One of the things that happened during this process, somehow all of this got leaked out onto whatever pages on Facebook.
Right.
So you have every fucking critic, every fucking expert, everybody that knows every moment of the history of Black Flag stepping up going, Keith Morris is a thief. He went behind Greg Ginn's back. He tried to take some stuff that didn't belong to him, which was so far from the case, but I actually wanted to do that at one time.
Right.
I'm raising my hand saying, yeah, I at one point considered doing that. I at one point considered going to everybody that was part of the band that had never received royalties and suing Greg Ginn's ass. Mm-hmm. So it would equate to like 7 or 8 people. We got the 4 bars, and that was also something that we had to give up in the lawsuit, which is not a big deal. Although people, there's certain iconic rock logos.
Yeah, the Stones.
You know, like the Metallica.
Bars. Yeah.
You know, the Stones with the lips and the tongue.
Yeah. Black Flag.
The 4 bars
DKs.
Huh?
4 bars are recognizable.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do they stand for?
Black flags.
It's a waving flag.
Yeah.
See, we even went to Raymond Pettibone, who not only came up with the name, but came up with the 4 bars. Because I'm really good friends with Raymond. I said, Raymond, we're going after this stuff. Do you want to partake? Do you want to be a part of this? And he will say how much he loves his older brother, but he will also say how his older brother just ripped him off and used him and fucked him over. Mm. And Raymond said, you have my blessings because you guys, all of you guys deserve that. That belongs to you just as much as it does to him, just as much as it does to anybody else. Mm. So we went for it and we got half of it. And like I said, I had to give up the bars, or we had to give up the bars, because the way that it worked was there were the 3 of us in the room that agreed on doing this. My lawyer went and pursued it and got the answers, not all of the answers that we wanted, but he got what we had asked for him to do. Mm-hmm. And the idea was the 3 of us made this decision. It wasn't just one guy trying to swoop and, not even telling everybody else. Our intention was to just do this rather than going around and getting everybody's permission, and spending another year and a half, 2 years. Like, well, Ron, what do you think? You want to be a part of this, or Kira, you want to be a part of this? Because I'd talked with Kira about being part of a class action suit. When the numbers are so big, there's so much money involved, it becomes a class action suit. Yeah. Where you're actually in Washington, D.C. You're not at the court in Santa Monica. You're not downtown L.A. You are going in front of, like, the circuitry in Washington, D.C. Once we told everybody what we'd done, everybody was fine with it. Everybody was good with it. It was like more power to you. And I'd let everybody know that Raymond said that it was okay for us to do this. So we got it. We lost it. And in the lawsuit, I'm supposed to be receiving merch royalties, and I've not seen a merch royalty check. At one point, the opposing lawyer was like, I said, you're selling these T-shirts, but it's a drop it's a drop in the ocean as to what's going on Amazon and what's going on eBay. And I explained that I took it upon myself to remove Circle Jerks bootleggers, going through all of that rigmarole. Or are we winding this up? Or are you
Yeah, we need to, because it's we've been going on for almost 4 hours.
This is 4 hours?
3.
Well, we started at 10.
Christ.
It's like, yeah.
Well, why didn't you just punch me in the face?
We got to go to the desert too. So
I thought you were going to say I got to go to the dentist.
Huh?
Victoria's not. Victoria's in Virginia.
So
we're
she
just
is?
Gonna do Dave, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, well then.
You're going to go to Virginia to talk with her?
No.
Because that would be beautiful.
I feel like did I imagine or did I see you and Henry Rollins share the stage in recent years?
No.
I imagined it.
No. And the final outcome of everything that happened with Henry was that he couldn't run fast enough. He could not. It's like, hey guys, let's do this, all for one and one for all. And when the buyout, the royalty buyout for him appeared, he couldn't take that and run with it fast enough. And in the process leading up to that, he had torn into Chuck and I. He'd sent out a couple of just totally unnecessary emails.
But I feel like with Black Flag, you're familiar with the whole Danzig and their whole legal issues. They eventually sort of made up and then went on recently to play arenas. Exactly.
Money.
But wouldn't those offers
Money.
come in for you guys?
Money. They are playing this evening over at our brand new soccer stadium, which equates to probably there might be about 35,000, 40,000 people there. I know when they open up that field, that's probably good for a minimum 20,000 people. Money, like Cyndi Lauper sang in the one song, "Money changes everything."
You toured with Danzig back in the day, right? With Circle Jerks?
No touring. We played an occasional show with them.
Oh, okay. You have any funny Danzig stories, Glenn?
No, I love them. I love the Misfits. I can't say any bad things about the Misfits.
Not bad. Good. Like, he's an interesting character.
They were horrible live. Just brutally horrible live. But it was about the show. It was about all of just the big ball of energy and what it was.
Oh, you got Repo Man right here. Is that yours?
Uh-huh.
So do you just rent these or from the library or something? Or
No, those are, if you look at both of those, both truly incredibly great films.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of
and
Arabia.
Repo Man.
If you watch Lawrence of Arabia, just an incredibly beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Towards the end, it's the history of the Middle East, not just one country in the Middle East. It's the history of the Middle East. And we have no business being there because they're nothing but tribes. They've always been tribes. And those tribes are always going to fight amongst themselves. So there's never, ever, never, ever going to be peace in the Middle East. We have no business being there. No room for white people in the Middle East.
What about Repo Man?
Well, Repo Man, that should have won several Academy Awards just right off the bat.
Yeah. I need to see that again. I'm going to put it on my iPad.
Let's go eat sushi and not pay.
Yeah. Is that in Repo Man? Let's go eat sushi and not pay?
And another one is Let's Commit Crimes.
Right.
And then the line in the bar scene when the Circle Jerks are playing acoustic.
Uh-huh.
Otto, played by Emilio Estevez,
right,
who's brilliant in the movie.
Yeah.
Otto says to the person next to him at the bar, "I used to like these guys."
That's a good place to end it.
Or I used to like this guy.
Well, I still like you, man. Thank you for doing this. Really,
This has been great.
I really appreciate it, man. It's been super, super fun.
Thank you for the breakfast.
Of course.
Oh, yeah,
of
man.
course.
Anytime.
What's next?
We'd like to do it
Well,
again.
what's next for me is you buying me lunch now.
Yeah, well,
Of
next
course.
is we're gonna do this again in a year. Once the podcast blows up.
Yep.
So for people to follow you online, where do they go?
Yeah.
Is it just off right now?
Well, if you're on Facebook, you could go to the Circle Jerks. You could go to my page. See, my page is the greatest thing that ever happened to Facebook.
Okay.
Just kidding.
It's not there? There's no Keith Morris one?
It's there.
There is, okay.
Yeah. And what I will do is I will let all of your listeners and your viewers know that if you're going to step up and just be an asshole, save it.
Yeah.
Let's just circumvent all of the stupidity and the idiotity and all of it.
Lead with kindness. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think people will. I think people enjoy this storytelling few hours with you, man. It's
Breakfast with Keith.
I watched half of your Craig Weedron interview.
Yeah.
And that he's fucking awesome.
Yeah, he is.
We love Craig.
And he's a sweetheart. He is a great human being.
Very much so, yeah. Shout out to Craig.
Shout out to Craig Wedren. Cool. Well, thank you.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Support us on Patreon.
We're going to the desert.
Listen on iTunes. Watch on YouTube. Keith Morris.
From Glendale to Los Feliz to Joshua Tree.
That's it.
Back to New York City.
I'm back again.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks,
Thank
Keith.
you.
Thank you. Hi, this is Joseph Arthur. Thanks for checking out Come to Where I'm From. Please support us on Patreon, patreon.com/come-to-where-I'm-from. We are an independent podcast, and any contributions you can make are greatly appreciated.